Chapter 959. As for the unlucky Hierophantine, he was already in imminent danger under Li Shi's dual swords. As for the other Naga aberrations, they were quickly cleaned up. None of the Nagas could come to support this Naga sage. With Bai Xiaowen's participation, Hierophantine found it even harder to hold on. He was quickly knocked to the ground and tied up with ropes. Queen Camelot also stuck a special magical confinement rune on Hierophantine's body. This confinement rune could last for 48 hours. Of course, this kind of confinement rune tool was only effective on targets who had lost the ability to resist. It was useless to secretly stick it on them during combat. "Xiaowen, let's chase after them too," Li Shi said excitedly. "The Snake Mother Galilala is also a lord. Let's take advantage of this rare opportunity to kill her. There are so many Snake Woman bosses. These are all treasure chests." Bai Xiaowen grunted. "I hope it'll be as you wish. But I keep feeling that the Snake Mother retreated a little too decisively." Although the two of them spoke like this, they did not stop moving. The orcs chased in front while the mages of Camelot followed behind. Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi were the third group to follow. After passing through the crack between two rock walls, their field of vision widened. However, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi suddenly stopped. Not only the two of them, but even the mages of Camelot in front stopped in their tracks. The orc leaders at the front had already turned into a group of stone statues. Their faces were still filled with shock and panic. "What happened?" Bai Xiaowen asked. Queen Camelot said, "I didn't see the whole process, but it looks like they were hit by the Snake Mother Galilala's petrification magic. Legend has it that there are Medusas among the female Nagas. Anyone who looks directly at their hair will be petrified." "It's true." After a pause, Queen Camelot said, "These stupid orcs were hit and lost track of the snake women. We can't rashly chase after them." Bai Xiaowen smiled bitterly. "Your Majesty, you don't look nervous at all. Is that okay? Great Chieftain Kamash and the others should be fine." With that said, Bai Xiaowen used insight on one of the stone sculptures, King Kamash. Queen Camelot looked indifferent. "The life and death of these orcs has nothing to do with me. I'm completely bound by my oath if I don't take the opportunity to exterminate them." A drop of sweat appeared on the back of Bai Xiaowen's head. Fortunately, insight gave him some feedback. To Bai Xiaowen's relief, King Kamash was still alive, but he had fallen into a petrified state called Snake Mother's Hair. Snake Mother's Hair, petrified. Unable to move, attack, or cast spells. Duration, 5 minutes. Remaining, 214 seconds. In this state, you will be immune to any non-real damage with priority level 7 and below, including 7, and you will not be able to move. Phew, it seems that the Snake Mother's Hair's petrification spell only temporarily freezes the mobility of the victims. However, King Kamash and the others cannot be attacked, so this ability is not that powerful. Thinking about it, it made sense. King Kamash was in existence close to the level of a lord, and the leader of the orcs beside him was also a top-notch expert. It was impossible for them to be killed by a group spell. Even if Snake Mother Caglila was a mage-type lord, it was still unlikely. The petrification state that could freeze movement for 5 minutes was already very powerful in itself. In this state, they would be immune to all damage except for real damage. It was also a kind of balance between the rules of the spiritual realm and this skill. Otherwise, if they were controlled for 5 minutes, even a small soldier would be able to hack them to death. This move of the Snake Mother. The activation conditions should be relatively harsh, or it needs a long time to prepare. Bai Xiaowen pondered for a moment. Otherwise, they could have not given up on Hierophantine. They could have directly activated this move when they encountered us, petrified most of our combat power, and then brought Hierophantine away. Well, that makes sense. Queen Camelot thought about it seriously. Should we continue to chase after them, or wait for these orcs to wake up? Let's stop chasing. The main goal of this operation has been achieved. Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes and seemed to be thinking about something. Soon, the orcs woke up. When it was mentioned that they were hit, this group of burly orcs had an angry and fearful expression on their faces. According to the orcs' clumsy language skills, when they were chasing after the snake mother, they saw that they were about to catch up with her. Unexpectedly, the hair on the back of her head came alive like a group of poisonous snakes, and the eyes of each snake head radiated a vicious red light. After everyone saw the red light, they felt their bodies become heavy, as if they were filled with lead, and their movement speed became slower and slower. In the end, they were completely petrified, and even their thoughts were stagnant. There was a blank period of several minutes. Of course, for the petrified orcs, it was only a moment. The group walked back to the vicinity of the leyline pillar. Looking at the towering crystal pillar, King Camelot was a little emotional. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, who would have imagined that the Great Gaguli Plateau was supported by this giant pillar? Our human prophet wanted it. Queen Camelot snorted softly. TSK, King Camelot's attitude towards the queen still did not soften, but when he looked at Bai Xiaowen again, his expression was much gentler. Lord Prophet, you are not only the prophet of humans, but also the prophet of all races on the continent. Thank you for finding the leyline corridor of the Gaguli Plateau. If it weren't for you, we might still be in the dark until the moment of the earthquake and the seawater poured in. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, "This is my mission, Your Excellency. You don't have to thank me. After all, the Orc Kingdom has paid me a satisfactory reward for this survey." Bai Xiaowen's words were also meant to remind Camelot not to forget the deal between them. In fact, Bai Xiaowen's actions were superfluous. King Camelot laughed loudly and promised to give the mother of the wargs to Bai Xiaowen to fulfill his promise. The other orcs were also extremely grateful to Bai Xiaowen. Originally, some of them were quite critical of Bai Xiaowen. After all, Bai Xiaowen had caused a lot of trouble in the Orc Kingdom these few days. These orcs sympathized with the existence of the Shadowblade clan out of a sense of honor. But now, Bai Xiaowen had thwarted the Naga's conspiracy and protected the leyline corridor and the leyline pillar of the Gaguli Plateau. This achievement had completely erased the orcs' previous discord. Looking around the leyline corridor one last time, King Camelot arranged for the dozen or so orc leaders to lead the elite orc warriors to guard here in shifts. Bai Xiaowen, Li Shi, Queen Camelot, and the mages rode on white eagles and griffins respectively, escorting the captives back to Redstone City. Chapter 960. Lord Prophet, Harlequin. I'll leave it to you. Roar, the wolf tamer, was still a little reluctant, but as a moderate orc, he was also grateful for Bai Xiaowen's help to the Orc Kingdom. Moreover, he had made a promise, so he gave the nameplate of the Mother of Mount Wolves to Bai Xiaowen immediately. Moreover, according to Master Ruer's observation, Harlequin had been sick for a few days after the disappearance of the Wrathclaw. He did not even have an appetite for his favorite stoneback lizard strips. If the Wrathclaw really left the Orc Kingdom forever, it was hard to say whether Harlequin would become depressed or not. Bai Xiaowen sighed to himself. The Wrathclaw had really hit the spot. Fenrir had not seen such deep feelings for many years, until now. Bai Xiaowen's special side mission, the Prophet's mission, was finally completed. Originally, it was just an ordinary nameplate worn around the neck of the Mother of Mount Wolves, but after the mission was completed and Bai Xiaowen obtained it, it changed. The halo of psionic particles surrounded it, turning it into a psionic item. Harlequin was also absorbed into the nameplate, and there was a picture of a giant wolf on the back of the nameplate. Nameplate of the Mother of Mount Wolves. Mission item. After use, you can summon the Mother of Mount Wolves, Harlequin. You can take it back when you use it again, but you can't control it to fight. You can take the nameplate out of the Black Tide plane, but you can't carry out the summoning or taking it back command in other planes. Oh, thank you for the thoughtful care of the spiritual realm. Bai Xiaowen smiled. This was obviously a small measure to make it easier for him to carry around. Otherwise, White Eagle E and Air would not be able to carry a big live wolf even if they worked together. As an individual life, there was no way to put it in the storage space. How could he take it wherever he went? Phew. I've completed 2 of the 3 goals. Finally, I just need to get the ancient rune armor of the Dwarf Kingdom, and I can. Just as Bai Xiaowen had this thought, an orc warrior suddenly came over to pass a message. Lord Prophet, Great Chief, and that human queen, there's something important that you need to go over. Oh. Bai Xiaowen summoned the mother of wargs and the Wrath Claw. No matter what, it would be a good idea for the two wolves to get to know each other better. When they arrived at the Redstone Throne, not only were Queen Camelo and King Kamish present, even the two captives, Harafenson and Kathleen, were present. However, the two of them, the human and the Naga, were restrained by magic runes. You've come, Lord Prophet. King Kamish was now very polite to Bai Xiaowen. Dior is here. Can we begin? Queen Carmelo said coldly to the beast man Great Chief. Start what? Bai Xiaowen looked at the two captives curiously. King Kamish cleared his throat. My interrogators have made some progress. I think it's necessary for you to know this information. I'm not sure if this spineless Naga is telling the truth. Oh? Bai Xiaowen looked at Harafenson. This Naga scientist, who had always been arrogant, did not have any signs of torture on his body. He was in good health. I'm willing to confess. Lord Prophet, I'm a scholar. I'm in possession of advanced science and technology. I can serve the Guardian camp. I'm willing to abandon the dark and join the light. Harafenson almost rushed to say. Bai Xiaowen was speechless. Kathleen snorted. Spineless thing. Your existence is a disgrace to the Naga. Bai Xiaowen looked at the two captives and said with a smile, interesting. As a human, Miss Kathleen is a diehard. But as a Naga, Mr. Harafenson is an educator who actively defected. I defected. I'm willing to accept education. Harafenson immediately followed Bai Xiaowen's words. Lord Prophet, although I'm a Naga, I'm a human. I was only deceived and turned into a Naga. I'm also a victim. Shut up. Since you're a victim, why did you help the Naga destroy the continent? The earthquake in the Amusha forest was related to you, right? Queen Camelot said coldly. You should be glad that you didn't land in the Elven Kingdom. Otherwise, you would have been cut into pieces. I had no choice. Harafenson sighed. He spread out his hands and suddenly realized that they were tied up. Oh, if I didn't work, the Great Lord wouldn't let me go. Bai Xiaowen said calmly, so you took the initiative and actively assisted the Naga in their destruction so that you could ask the Great Lord for a reward and quickly climb up the ranks? This. Harafenson smiled awkwardly. Lord Prophet, I'm a researcher who dedicates my life to science. After all, I need a certain amount of power to mobilize resources and do the research I want. Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes. This guy was a bit like the zombie doctor. Well, you said that you want to be honest. Then tell me all the information you know. Let's start with the most important thing, Bai Xiaowen said calmly. I'll warn you. As a prophet, I can see some illusions about the past and the future. If what you say doesn't match what I see, and you can't justify yourself, I can only treat it as you lying and torture you. What is the most important thing? Harafenson asked very honestly. Oh, information related to the Great Lord and the Ley Vein Corridor is the most important. Bai Xiaowen pondered for a moment and gave him the priority. The other information can be left for later. Of course, if you think that a piece of information is very important and may help the Guardian camp turn the situation around, you can ignore the priority I gave earlier and say it first. Harafenson said, oh, there's a very, very urgent piece of information, say it. Seeing Harafenson's hesitation, Queen Carmelo urged. I'll tell you the truth. You can't accuse me of any crimes. Harafenson tried to bargain. Crimes against humanity, your crimes are already serious enough. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand and said, hurry up and say it, I'll consider it as redeeming yourself. Well, you all know that I'm a scientist, and I have a very good survey ability. Harafenson said. Okay. In the past, I worked on the east coast of the continent. In the southeast of the Calchino Republic, the Bonus Mountains turned into the sea, which was the result of my survey. Of course, now my survey focus has shifted to the west coast of the continent. Focus. Seeing Bai Xiaowen clenching his fist, Herr Fenson was very sensible. What I want to say is that I'm not only surveying the Amasha Forest and the Galgulch Plateau. There's also the entrance to the Lei Vein Corridor in another place. I've found it. Chapter 961. Where is it? On the Redstone Throne, everyone except the orcs heaved a sigh of relief. Herr Fenson whispered, "It's the Great Mines of Moat." The Dwarven Kingdom? Queen Camello secretly heaved a sigh of relief. That's right. The Dwarven Kingdom is located in the southwest of the continent. It's also within this guy's range of activity, Bai Xiaowen said. Li Shi blinked and whispered to Bai Xiaowen in the party channel. Xiaowen, part of your awakening skill quest is the Dwarven Kingdom's ancient runic armor, right? In that case, we can use the same method to make the Dwarven Kingdom use this item as a quest reward. It'll be a lot easier. Bai Xiaowen nodded. This is indeed good news, but there's still a problem. At this point, Bai Xiaowen suddenly raised his voice and asked, Herr Fenson, tell us about the order in which you found these 3 ley line corridors. The first one I found was the Great Mines of Moat, then the corridor in the middle of the Amasha Forest, Herr Fenson said. That's not right. Since the ley line corridor we found first belonged to the Dwarven Kingdom, why didn't the Dwarven Kingdom have an earthquake, but the Elven Kingdom was the first to suffer a disaster? Queen Camello asked. I don't know about that, but I'm not lying. Herr Fenson looked at the Queen's doubtful eyes and shuddered. Bai Xiaowen touched his chin and said, there's one possibility. The Great Mines of Moat is an important ore vein production area of the Dwarven Kingdom. There's usually a lot of human traffic. It's much more difficult to target this place than the no man's land in the middle of the Amasha Forest. The Great Lord might want to make it easier first and then harder later. After a pause, Bai Xiaowen asked the second question. Herr Fenson, after you found the ley line corridor, how long did the Great Lord need to prepare before he could trigger an earthquake? The timing is uncertain. For example, the earthquake in the Boss Mountains took more than a year. But in the Amasha Forest, less than 2 weeks after I found the ley line corridor, the earthquake happened. Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes and said, Your Majesty, the Great Chief has the precedent of the Amasha Forest, which means that the Great Lord doesn't need to prepare for too long to launch an earthquake on the ley line corridor. In other words, the Great Mine of Moat in the Dwarf Kingdom is very dangerous. No problem, I'll inform the dwarves immediately. Camelor and the Talon Kingdom had a good relationship, and the Queen herself had a convenient channel to quickly inform the dwarves. Wait a minute. Once we have this information, can we make a strategic plan? King Kamish said in a deep voice, have the Alliance army lie in ambush in the Dwarven mines. Wait for that damned Great Lord to appear and kill him. Bai Xiaowen said, the news of Herr Fenson's capture will soon reach the Lord's ears. As long as the Great Lord wasn't a fool, he would definitely consider the possibility that Herr Fenson would betray him. There wasn't much point in setting up an ambush. And before the 7 holy artifacts are gathered, it will be very difficult to kill a monster like the Great Lord. Speaking of the 7 holy artifacts, we've actually found one. King Kamish's voice was low. You found one? Queen Camello was shocked. A holy artifact meant that there was a Lord-level powerhouse. It was definitely not to be underestimated. Who is the owner? Bai Xiaowen asked the key question. King Kamish said slowly, his face a little dark, there is no owner. Well, it seems that we haven't found a suitable candidate, Bai Xiaowen said. What does the holy artifact look like? Where is it now? It's a shield, King Kamish said. It's placed in my armory and is closely guarded. Among the 7 holy artifacts, there is only one holy artifact in the shape of a shield. It's Sereth's protection, Bai Xiaowen said. Although it looks like a shield, there is a rapier hidden inside. Therefore, Sereth's protection is also known as the hidden sword shield. The 7 holy artifacts were all weapons that needed to be held with both hands. The main body of the hidden sword shield was a shield, but the wielders still needed to pull out the rapier inside to unleash the power of the holy artifact. This was the recognition of the holy artifact. One should not think that the holy artifact could be used by just anyone. Previously, in the Bess archipelago, they found the holy artifact Balgara's punishment, the bone-piercing hammer. Barbarian Barca was the first to try it and was recognized by the holy artifact. The probability of that happening was extremely small. King Kamish said a little dejectedly, "That's right. Almost all the orc warriors in the Crimson Stone Kingdom have tried it. No one could pull out the rapier hidden in the shield and gain the recognition of the holy artifact." Bai Xiaowen said, "It's indeed a pity. However, I hope that the Orc Kingdom can publicize this holy artifact and let more people from other races try it." "I will. However, I request that after the Prophet finds a new holy artifact, he can allow the orcs to try it too," King Kamish said. "Of course. At this stage, it doesn't matter who has the holy artifact. What's important is that the 7 holy artifacts must be gathered as soon as possible," Bai Xiaowen said. Queen Camelot said, "Dior, in the 7-day prophecy you made, 4 of the holy artifacts have already appeared. However, there's one holy artifact that requires special attention. It's no longer in the land of prophecy. Instead, it was stolen by an unknown existence in advance." "Which prophecy is it?" Bai Xiaowen asked. "The 6th prophecy." "I understand." Bai Xiaowen sighed softly. He knew that the gathering of the 7 holy artifacts would not be so easy. The 6th prophecy contained a meat cleaver, Akali's wrath. In this way, only the holy artifacts of the 1st and 5th prophecies have yet to appear. "Dior, can you lead a team and personally excavate these 2 holy artifacts?" Queen Camelot said. "No problem, but I want to go to the Dwarf Kingdom first." Now that the Orc and Dwarf Kingdom's ley-line corridors had been explored by the Nagas, the possibility of these 2 places being invaded was very high. Especially on the Dwarf Kingdom's side, the Nagas had probably infiltrated from all sides. The Great Lord's preparations for the earthquake should be almost done, right? After all, that was the first place they found. A grand war scene met rich prophets. As an awakened, Bai Xiaowen certainly did not want to miss it. Queen Camelot naturally agreed. From the perspective of the allied forces, she also hoped that a prophet like Bai Xiaowen could participate. Not to mention his prophecy ability, just Bai Xiaowen's ability to plan in the Boss Sea area alone would play a pivotal role. However, Bai Xiaowen frowned imperceptibly. He took the initiative to go to the Dwarf Kingdom in the hope of triggering the next stage of the main storyline mission, such as guarding Moat's great mine. However, the delayed notification of the spiritual realm's rules also made Bai Xiaowen understand the difficulty of triggering the 3rd stage of the main storyline. At this moment, Herefenson, who had almost been forgotten, raised his hand. "Speaking of which, I also thought of a piece of information that seems very important. Mobile reading access, M." Chapter 962. Say it. "Follow dream shall say ww swaiming com," Bai Xiaowen said in a deep voice. "Well, it's like this. Before I was turned into a Naga, I was a human scholar. I traveled around the continent to raise funds for my research," Herefenson said. "Perhaps because of this, when I was captured and turned into a Naga, the Great Lord deliberately kept my previous memories, get to the point. After I was turned into a Naga, I drew a topographic map of the Black Tide continent for the Great Lord. The Great Lord seemed to be particularly interested in one area," Herefenson said. "What area?" Bai Xiaowen was a little curious. "It's at the border between Camelot and Altoria." Herefenson circled a small red circle on the map. Queen Camelot took a closer look and frowned. "That's the Ashen Swamp? A desolate place with no signs of human habitation. It's not a strategic location, and I've never heard of any magic ruins." "Are you sure it's here?" Herefenson said, "I'm sure. This is the only place the Great Lord has asked about in detail, so it's very vivid in my memory. The Great Lord also said something at that time." After a pause, Herefenson cleared his throat and said in a deliberately hoarse and low voice, "No man's land?" Very good. This secret should be buried forever. Those who know will all die. You can't say a word. Kill them. Are you sure this is a sentence? Bai Xiaowen looked at Harifensen suspiciously. Harifensen complained, the Great Lord has 9 heads. At every moment, there are several heads talking at the same time, and there are echoes. It's not easy for me to remember it so clearly. The female mage, Catherine, had already gritted her teeth and looked at Harifensen with fire in her eyes. She wanted to bite off a piece of flesh from this Naga. However, she had lost the ability to move and could only threaten him verbally. Harifensen, the Great Lord ordered you not to tell this secret. You deliberately disobeyed. You're dead. Harifensen shrank back. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand, and 2 Camelot mages escorted Catherine away. Harifensen, you don't have to be afraid. Although the crime you committed is very serious, as long as you turn over a new leaf and actively work for the Alliance, you can still fight for leniency and even continue your research. Bai Xiaowen comforted the Naga scholar who was on tenterhooks. Harifensen let out a sigh of relief. Well, if it weren't for the fact that the Great Lord told me not to tell anyone, I might not have such a deep impression of you. Sigh, this is fate. I was captured by the Nagas, and a pitiful, weak, and helpless scholar like me couldn't resist. This is fate. Bai Xiaowen ignored Harifensen's excuses. He stared at the center of the map, at the area circled in red. The Ashen Swamp. This name seems a little familiar. Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes. Suddenly, he felt a burning sensation from the bracelet of misfortune on his left wrist. Bai Xiaowen was especially familiar with this feeling. This was the future that the bracelet of misfortune was about to reveal. The future illusions that the bracelet of misfortune automatically revealed were all very accurate prophecies. It was like handing gold directly to Bai Xiaowen. On the other hand, Bai Xiaowen actively sought for information when his mind was sublimated. Most of the time, he would only receive meaningless illusions. He could only rely on his own intelligence to pry into 1 or 2 pieces of useful information. It was like a great wave washing sand, and he would need to put in a lot of effort to find the real gold. This was an opportunity that could not be missed. Bai Xiaowen hurriedly sat down, closed his eyes, and sent a trace of his mental energy into it. A deathly still swamp, crawling giant crocodiles. His vision quickly zoomed in, and after passing through many obstacles, a majestic underground palace appeared. Then, there were tall walls, and the ancient inscriptions carved on them were filled with a sense of vicissitudes. After a long time, Bai Xiaowen opened his eyes. Everyone else, including King Kamish and Queen Camello, stopped in tacit understanding and did not disturb Bai Xiaowen's meditation. After he opened his eyes, many gazes were directed at him. What did you see, Dior? Queen Camello asked first, then suddenly realized. I forgot that the prophet can't tell us the answer directly. Bai Xiaowen nodded slightly. Your Majesty, I'm afraid I can't go to the Dwarf Kingdom to participate in the battle. There's something more important that I need to do. At this moment, Bai Xiaowen had already received a mission notification. Main mission, Dusty Temple, activated. Mission objective, head to the Pale Swamp, enter the Dusty Temple, and decipher the ancient inscriptions. Mission difficulty A+, mission time limit, 13 days, 7 hours, 55 minutes, 12 seconds. Mission reward unknown Dusty Temple, Bai Xiaowen chewed on these words. What he had seen in the Elven Kingdom's Tree of Wisdom quietly corresponded to these words. Bai Xiaowen already had a general understanding in his heart. If it's really as I think, then such a major plot development is indeed qualified to activate the main mission. Hearing that Bai Xiaowen had something more important to do, the others did not ask him about the specifics. Now, everyone basically knew some of the restrictions and taboos of the prophet. Queen Camello said, Dior, if it's not convenient for you to tell us what it is, then at least give us some hints. Bai Xiaowen thought for a moment. I can give 2 hints. First, the place that Harifensen circled is very important. Second, Your Majesty, please go to the Elven Kingdom's Tree of Wisdom and borrow a book called Song of the Forgotten Kings. I'll remember. Queen Camelo nodded. Do you need me to arrange for some guards to accompany you? Seeing Bai Xiaowen shake his head, Queen Camelo said again, then, at least let your previous companions meet up with you before you set off. No need. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. The more secretive this operation is, the better. I'll only take my sister Charlotte with me. As for my other companions, they'll stay on the battlefield in the Amusa Sea. Li Shi looked at Bai Xiaowen with a hint of joy in his eyes. This was the third main mission triggered by the White Phoenix team, which meant that the team could stay in the Black Tide Plain for more than 13 days. This meant that one ticket to the spiritual realm could be used as 3 tickets. In the same spiritual realm, they could stay for 40 days, which was completely different from the 13 days and 8 hours with 3 breaks. The former meant that they could explore the plot to the maximum extent and do some difficult side missions. Moreover, the probability of matching all 3 tickets to the same plane was too low. The triggering of the third main mission was absolutely priceless. Chapter 963. The meet and greet was finally over. Bai Xiaowen then used Queen Camelot's magic communication talisman as a medium to contact his 3 companions, Qiao Rui, Cecilia, and Han Su, who were fighting far away in the Amusha Sea. For this purpose, he specially requested a quiet wooden house where no one would disturb him. The magic communication talisman flashed, and after a few seconds, Qiao Rui's image condensed into form, followed by 2 slightly blurry figures, Cecilia and Han Su. Captain. Ah, Sister Qiao, how's the situation on your side? Qiao Rui smiled and said, not very good. What's going on? Well, actually, it's not bad. Qiao Rui's smile spread. When we first arrived at the battlefield in the Amusha Sea, the 3 of us could only follow the ships of the Spiritor World figures. We didn't gain much, only some reputation and merit points. But 2 days ago, after our Free Corps arrived, the situation improved a lot. So far, we've killed 3 Naga leaders independently. The solo kill that Qiao Rui mentioned referred to the situation where the Spirit World characters did not participate in the attack, and the 3-man team of the White Phoenix team completed the kill. Isn't that good? Bai Xiaowen breathed a sigh of relief. It can't compare to the gains when Captain was leading the team. Qiao Rui's expression had a hint of bitterness, but it quickly turned into a smile. This feeling of needing to make decisions for everything. I'm a little unfamiliar with it. Bai Xiaowen smiled awkwardly and said, Sister Qiao, you're exaggerating. Before joining the White Phoenix team, Qiao Rui had been exploring the Spiritor World independently. The elite awakened sent by the Qiao family were only responsible for protecting Qiao Rui's close safety, and generally would not give her advice. Qiao Rui's IQ was not low, and after years of independent exploration in the Spiritor World, he was already a talent who could take charge. Therefore, when Qiao Rui led Cecilia and Han Su separately, Bai Xiaowen was the most assured. Speaking of which, Sir Captain, are you going to meet up with us this time? Is there any big movement? Qiao Rui asked. Cecilia, who was behind them, showed an interested expression. Even Han Su moved closer. Well, the original plan was for me to finish my business with the orcs, and then the team would gather. But now, you should know that the situation has changed. Bai Xiaowen coughed. I plan to do the 3rd main mission with Shui, and there will be an important side mission in the Dwarf Kingdom in the next few days. So? Qiao Rui smiled faintly. Ah. Well, so Sister Qiao will have to work hard for a few more days. After the 3 of you evacuate from Amusa, go to the Dwarf Kingdom immediately. Bai Xiaowen said. Dior, can't we do the main mission on your side together? Cecilia's voice was heard. It's not that we can't, but it's a question of cost-effectiveness, Bai Xiaowen said. First of all, the difficulty of this mission is not high. It's only B+. It's a bit of a waste for a 5-person team to do it. Besides, it'll take you at least a day to get here. Secondly, you should go to the Dwarf Kingdom first to familiarize yourself with the situation there and collect information about the battlefield, especially information about the ancient runic armor. This is also a very important task. After a pause, Bai Xiaowen said, I'm not sure how long Shui and I will need to complete the third main mission. If I finish here first, I'll go to the Dwarf Kingdom immediately. By then, the information you'll collect will be very important, and it can provide me with a good direction to cut in. Okay. Qiao Rui's smile was somewhat mischievous. Then it settled. Captain and Shui, please be careful. Also, if there's a delay, you can open the treasure chests separately. Okay. You guys be careful too. Let's get down to business first. The two of you can take your time. Bai Xiaowen was speechless. In the Amusa Sea, on a huge ghost ship, Qiao Rui, who had hung up the magic communication, still had a mischievous smile on his face. Cecilia, do you feel uncomfortable? Qiao Rui asked. No. Cecilia shook her head. Truth? Truth. Cecilia's eyelids drooped, and her voice was a little low. It's just a little regrettable. Okay, don't worry too much. Captain is right. If we meet up now, it'll only bring us negative benefits. Qiao Rui comforted Cecilia. After being separated for a few days, not only did Captain complete the second main mission, he also completed the awakening skill quests for himself and Shui. More importantly, he started the third main mission. Main missions get harder and harder to unlock later on. You can imagine how much effort he's put in during this time. I understand. We have to work hard to not waste this precious time. In fact, Cecilia was also a talented general, but her talents were more focused on leading troops to war and governing her fief. She wasn't as good as Qiao Rui, who was better at planning the actions of the awakened. However, when Qiao Rui told her the inside story of the awakened, she could quickly understand Qiao Rui's intention. Okay, let's open these 3 gold chests first and see if we can get something good to temporarily increase our combat power. Qiao Rui stretched her waist, which highlighted her attractive curves that even her robe couldn't cover. Next, we'll go to the Kingdom of Dwarfs. According to Captain, this is an important event that we can't miss. Is Sister Qiao angry? Li Shi asked, resting her chin on her hand. Not angry. Qiao Rui has a good view of the overall situation. Even if she had the choice, she wouldn't insist on meeting up. For now, it's still the best thing to do. Okay, don't think too much. Open the chests and we'll get ready to go. Bai Xiaowen stroked Li Shi's ponytail. Okay. 2 gold chests were placed in front of them. Bai Xiaowen first opened Fenrir's treasure chest. Fenrir, the former mate of the mother of Mount Wolves, was the Mount of Martial Kilgas. It was killed by the Wrath Claw. Bai Xiaowen was considered to have killed it alone. The law of the spiritual realm gave it a B-level rating. As for the treasure chest of the Shadow Blade Saint obtained by Li Shi, it was rated A. Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi each drew 1. Li Shi drew a roll of thick wolf skin called Fenrir's Fur. Looking at the name, it was a forging material that needed to be tanned by a blacksmith. Bai Xiaowen's luck was better. She drew a gold equipment, and it was a weapon. Why are you so lucky? Li Shi muttered. He. Bai Xiaowen laughed and said, the Black Tide Realm is my home ground. Chapter 964. Fenrir had dropped a pair of gauntlets shaped like bone claws. Dire Wolf Ripper, bound after pickup, grade, hero, gold, equipment position, hand, equipment requirement, basic strength 25, basic agility 25, attribute, additional attack power 8 to 16, additional skill, lacerating blow, passive. Melee attacks have a 15% chance to trigger an additional attack. Active activation of lacerating blow will tear the target, causing 1 to 3 stacks of bleeding damage, depending on the target's physique, and reducing the target's total armor by 20%. Cooldown, 12 hours. Durability, 40/45. Description, the dire wolf's spirit can't be removed from this pair of claws. This equipment is pretty good. It's rare to have an active and passive skill, and it's even rarer to have it appear on a weapon. Bai Xiaowen pondered for a moment. However, the passive trigger rate is a bit low, and the active effect is not very strong. As a gauntlet, it needs to be held in both hands, which is also a disadvantage. Overall, this pair of bone claws can be used, but it's not at the level of a graduation equipment. Li Shi nodded and said, the additional attack power is a bit low. Bai Xiaowen said, this is normal. The attack speed of a gauntlet is faster than a dual-wielding dagger, so the corresponding attack power will be weaker. The attack speed of a weapon was not strictly quantified because it was affected by the attributes and melee specialties, as well as the strength of the target enemy. This was the same as the soft control, hard control, and super hard control of the skill effect. It was summed up by the awakened ones themselves. It could be roughly divided into 3 major grades. The first grade was dual-wielding daggers. There were subtle differences between a short dagger and a long dagger. It mainly depended on the shape of the weapon, but the difference was not big. The second grade was single-handed weapons. Usually, a single-handed sword was faster than a single-handed axe, and a single-handed axe was faster than a single-handed hammer. There were subtle differences between swords, short swords, long swords, and so on. The third grade was two-handed weapons. There were also slight differences between swords, axes, and hammers. The ones that were slower than two-handed hammers were long-handled weapons, such as Zamadeo, spear, and so on. As for the gauntlet, it belonged to the special dual-wielding type. It obviously occupied the space of both hands, but it was only one piece of equipment. There was a special set exception. In terms of attack speed, the boxing gloves were slightly faster than the dual daggers. The above 3 gears were only limited to close-range weapons. As for long-range weapons, there was a separate comparison. Generally speaking, a single-handed gun was faster than a single-handed crossbow. Following that were two-handed crossbows, longbows, and so on. There was another rule: under the same quality, the faster the weapon's attack speed, the lower the additional attack power. No one in the team needs this set of bone claws, and there's not much trade value in binding them. Just give it to Kits. Bai Xiaowen summoned Kits and threw the bone claw to him. If the other awakened ones were to find out that a gold-grade equipment was given to a summoned creature, they would definitely shout that it was a waste. Of course, they would first shout that the summoned creature was breaking the rules by being able to wear equipment. However, Bai Xiaowen didn't feel like it was a waste at all. After all, there was the butcher's 3-piece set. Boss, this thing doesn't work. After putting on the bone claw, Kits waved it around with a disheartened expression. It can't exert any power at all. It's not as convenient as when I'm barehanded. Oh, I almost forgot. The attribute requirements of a summoned creature's equipment depend on my basic attributes. Bai Xiaowen glanced at it. My basic agility is still 2 points short. There's 100-year-old ginseng. Li Shi raised his hand to remind him. The 3 portions of special 100-year-old ginseng obtained from the Sword Song realm could increase the user's free attribute by 4 points. These attributes were considered basic attributes. Bai Xiaowen hadn't used them since he'd exchanged for them. These 3 ginseng were originally meant for special situations, such as when he'd gotten good equipment but his basic attributes couldn't keep up. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. No need. I can level up. Now that the 3rd stage of the main storyline has been triggered, and the 3rd step of the Awakening skill quest is 2/3 complete, there's not much point in continuing to level up. Bai Xiaowen leveled up to level 8 and gained 2 more points of strength, 2 more points of agility, and 2 more points of physique. His spirit increased by 5 points. As a result, his basic agility reached 25 points, meeting the requirements of the bone claws. As Bai Xiaowen leveled up, the bone claws on Kits's hands flashed with a faint light. Psionic resonance had been completed. Hey, I can feel the difference. Kits waved his claws at the wall beside him. Whoosh! Whoosh! 5 deep marks appeared, and wood chips flew everywhere. This equipment can increase your normal damage output, so use it when you need to attack. As for the dagger I gave you, the sting of the sand scorpion, use it when you need to delay the enemy. Don't mix it up, Bai Xiaowen reminded him. The dire wolf Fenrir's treasure chest draw had come to an end. In fact, it was only a B-level rating because although Fenrir was an independent level 10 boss, its strength was relatively average. This was also the balance that the rules of the spiritual realm had made for Kil'Gaz's personal combat power. Kil'Gaz himself was a level 10 rare boss. If the dire wolf had powerful skills and strength, it would be much stronger than other level 10 rare bosses such as Nechilu and Gershwin. Next was the Shadowblade Grand Swordsman's treasure chest. This time, Li Shi chose to draw first. You have received a card, Equipment Enhancement Card, 5 stars. A 5 stars enhancement card meant that a piece of equipment could be +7, or even +8 or higher. Bai Xiaowen drew the second draw and received a notification. You have received a piece of equipment, Shadowblade Grand Swordsman's Battle Flag. But immediately after the notification, a dark golden light appeared when the card was flipped over. This, Bai Xiaowen confirmed the notification again. He had indeed drawn a piece of equipment. Dark gold equipment? Li Shi's mouth twitched. It seems so. Bai Xiaowen looked at the dark golden light that was gradually solidifying. I'm finally lucky for once, you're more than lucky. Li Shi shouted. A boss dropped a dark gold item. I heard from Uncle Devil that normal monsters have a small chance of dropping blue equipment, while elite monsters have a small chance of dropping gold equipment, but this is a boss monster that dropped a dark gold item. Oh my god. She was a little incoherent. Li Shi wouldn't have been so excited if she had killed a lord after much effort, even if it had dropped 2 or 3 pieces of dark gold equipment. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, Don't be in such a hurry. Let's take a look at the equipment's attributes and equipment requirements first and see if we can use it. Shadowblade Grand Swordsman's Battle Flag, bound upon pickup, grade, Lord, dark gold, equipment position, back, equipment requirements, none, attributes, strength +4, agility +4, vitality +4, additional skill 1, Battle of Glory, passive. When there are no allies within 300 meters, the equipment will double your attributes. Otherwise, it will be halved. Additional skill 2, Ancestor's Charge, passive. When running towards the enemy, movement speed is increased by 30%. Effective distance, 300 meters, 180 degrees in front of the enemy, durability, 49/50. Description: the battle flag behind the Sword Saint represents the supreme honor of the Shadowblade clan. After additional skill 1, Battle of Glory, there was a small line of description frowny face note. The allies here refer to the awakened members of the same team or spiritual creatures of the same camp. This equipment is quite interesting. Bai Xiaowen touched his chin and said with interest. Chapter 965. For a Lone Ranger, it's a godly item. It adds so many attributes. Li Shi did some calculations. 300 meters is almost the maximum radius of the Ring of Glory. If the conditions are met, it will increase attributes by 24 points, but the conditions seem a bit harsh. Well, even if the conditions are not met, it will only increase attributes by 6 points. It's better than the average gold cloak. Moreover, this cloak has 2 additional skills, Bai Xiaowen said. Although it's not the kind of dark gold equipment that can rebirth and awaken, it's still a piece of practical equipment, Li Shi said, pondering. No. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. Shi, you've overlooked something. Take a look at the equipment's requirements again. Equipment requirements, none. Li Shi tilted his head. Well, a dark gold equipment without any basic requirements is indeed a lot better. Bai Xiaowen smiled. It's not as simple as an oath. Is it important? Li Shi's face showed a blank expression. Think about it. When you were a quasi-awakened, what if you had such a cloak during your first awakening test? When I was a quasi-awakened. Li Shi's expression changed slightly. At that time, my attributes were only 20 points. If I equipped this cloak, it could increase attributes by up to 24 points, which is equivalent to 2 or 3 times the real Chain Awakening test. The probability of passing the test is greatly increased. Yes. Bai Xiaowen nodded. This equipment doesn't add spirit, only strength, agility, and physique. 24 points of attributes are precious attributes that won't be wasted for a quasi-awakened in the test. The other skill, Ancestral Sprint, is the icing on the cake. In my opinion, this dark gold equipment can be used together with the psionic treasure that affects class advancement to greatly increase the completion rate of the mission and create a Chan Li Xiong class with exclusive equipment. Psionic treasures that affected class advancement were Bai Xiaowen's Black Soul Stone, Qiao Rui's Bamboo Flute, and Ouyang Heng's Tide Stone. If one completed the awakening quest related to a treasure and had a relatively high completion rating, the corresponding spiritual treasure would be converted into a hero class exclusive equipment. A hero class with exclusive equipment was undoubtedly stronger than a hero class without exclusive equipment. Of course, it didn't mean that one could only become a loser if they didn't have a class change treasure. Quasi-awakened ones who entered the spiritual realm for the first time would trigger an S-grade profession change mission. As long as they could complete it, they would become a hero. If the completion rate was high, there was also a chance of obtaining exclusive equipment. It was just that compared to the quasi-awakened ones who entered the spiritual world with class change treasures, the probability of obtaining exclusive equipment was much lower. If the first profession change failed, the profession change mission triggered when entering the spiritual realm for the second time would only be A-level difficulty. Of course, the A-level difficulty would be greatly increased. Hearing Bai Xiaowen's words, Li Shi suddenly realized something. Xian is about to awaken. This cloak is just right for her. Bai Xiaowen meant exactly this. In his opinion, if this cloak was given to anyone in the team, it wouldn't be able to bring out the true power of a dark gold equipment. The 5 of them moved as a team. In rare cases, they split up into groups of 2 or 3. It was rare for one person to move alone. Therefore, the additional attributes would be reduced by half, to only 6 points. Compared to an ordinary standard gold cloak, which would increase attributes by about 5 points, it was a small increase, but it was almost equivalent to nothing. To explain, the quasi-awakened one's basic dullness was locked, but during the awakening quest in the spiritual realm, their bodies were temporarily digitized. They could wear equipment and use it. Li Shi had obtained this cloak by killing the Shadow Blade Grand Swordsman alone. As long as Li Shi agreed to give it to Xian, Qiao Rui and the other 2 wouldn't have any objections. The main reason was that this cloak wouldn't increase the team's strength much. However, if it was given to Xian, there was a high probability that it could create a Chan Li Xiong profession. Bai Xiaowen then drew the lottery again. However, this time, he wasn't as lucky as before. He only obtained a special item, Brass Flask. Brass Flask. Drinking the strong alcohol in the flask will immediately remove the control effect on the user. It is equivalent to food and will take up the number of uses. Additional priority, 3. Cooldown, 6. The purpose of this item was to save some control removal food. It was a financial item. If it didn't conflict with the number of uses of food, its value would definitely soar. It was a pity. After opening the treasure chests, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi took a short break in Redstone City. After storing the Mother of Mount Wolves in the nameplate, they set off for the newly built teleportation portal on the outskirts of Redstone City. Next, the 2 of them were going to the Camelot Kingdom. They would take the road north to enter the Pale Swamp. The journey to the teleportation portal was bumpy as the Mount Wolves pulled the carriage. Suddenly, the carriage stopped. "Hey, who's there? Don't block the way." The coachman was an orc with a hoarse voice. This Mount Wolf carriage only had the lower half of the carriage. It wasn't a fully enclosed carriage like the ones from ancient Huaxia. It could be understood as the back of a modern truck. Sitting in the car, Bai Xiaowen also saw a figure blocking the road in front of him. The figure was stumbling towards him. When the person got closer, Bai Xiaowen could finally see his appearance clearly. He couldn't help but be slightly surprised. This was neither a human nor an orc. It was a short and weak gnoll. He had a dog-like head and a hunched back. Judging from his psionic aura, he should be a weak gnoll. He couldn't even be considered a normal gnoll. The orc coachman driving the carriage was a proper elite. He jumped off the Mount Wolf's back vigilantly and drew his weapon. "Who are you? What do you want?" The gnoll suddenly knelt on the ground. He held a black wooden box with both hands and raised it above his head. To be honest, it wasn't easy for a gnoll to do this. "What do you mean?" The orc coachman didn't quite understand. Bai Xiaowen understood. "Give it to me. It's for me." "Okay," the orc coachman said in a low, muffled voice. Soon, the black wooden box was handed to Bai Xiaowen. As for the gnoll, Bai Xiaowen signaled the orc coachman to stop him. Bai Xiaowen opened the black wooden box after using his mental power. A palm-sized scale lay quietly inside. There were also words on the scale. Bai Xiaowen read it and frowned slightly. He fell into deep thought. "What's wrong?" Li Shi asked in a low voice. "There's nothing nutritious." Bai Xiaowen passed the scale to Li Shi. "See for yourself." Li Shi read softly. "Respected Prophet, congratulations on capturing an important target. The road is dangerous. Please take good care of this scale. When necessary, show it to the right person. It will make your journey go smoothly. Mobile reading access, M. Chapter 966. What does this mean? It's a semi-anonymous letter. Li Shi pondered for a moment. It doesn't seem to have any ill intentions towards us. Bai Xiaowen nodded and waved his hand to let the skinny gnoll leave. Not only was this gnoll weak, but it also had low intelligence. It was basically impossible to communicate with it. Out of respect for the messenger, Bai Xiaowen did not use the bewitching spell on this gnoll messenger to read its memory. "Xiaowen, who do you think it is?" Li Shi asked. "I'm not sure, but this person is definitely not simple," Bai Xiaowen said. "It seems that the other party already knows the location of my target. The only people who know this are Camelot and the orcs. But if it's the higher-ups of these two countries, there's no need for them to communicate with me in such a secretive way. Could it be a mysterious organization that we don't know about?" Li Shi asked. "That's very likely." Putting away the scale, Bai Xiaowen sighed. "Let's not think too much about it. The difficulty of this mission is only B+. Judging from the difficulty, this mysterious organization should not be too malicious towards us. Otherwise, the difficulty would be at least A+. Of course, I'm not just considering the difficulty. When we get there, let's be careful. Nothing unexpected happened during the rest of the journey. The two took the teleportation portal to the Kingdom of Camelot. They declined Camelot's invitation to a banquet and headed north directly to the Ashen Swamp. The Ashen Swamp was filled with a pale mist. This mist was bone-chilling and seemed to be constantly absorbing the heat of the human body. Walking in the swamp could not replenish one's physical strength. The Ashen Swamp. "This name sounds familiar," Li Shi said. "Well, the treasure space of the Dead Soul Lake. The core area is called the Ashen Swamp." "It actually means the same thing," Bai Xiaowen said. "Could these two places be related in some way? I remember that there's this strange mist. It seems to be called Yin Qi." "Well, it should be the same place," Bai Xiaowen said. "However, the treasure space of the Dead Soul Lake should be a fragmented space that collapsed when the Black Tide Plain was unified last time, or even earlier, and it happened to include the Ashen Swamp. The Ashen Swamp we see now is actually a place that has evolved again." After Li Shi and Bai Xiaowen stepped into the Ashen Swamp, they were both afflicted with a negative status called Yin Qi lingering. In this state, the two were actually very familiar with each other. "I remember that there was a hidden tribe of Nagas in the Pale Swamp in the Treasure Land. I don't know if it's still there," Li Shi said. "I'm not sure about that." Bai Xiaowen actually had some doubts in his heart. He recalled that the female chief of the Naga tribe, Alisai, whom he had met in the ashen mire, seemed to be the priestess of Amitabha. However, her appearance was very different from ordinary Naga. The most special thing about her was that she had many arms, which was very similar to the Snake Mother's multi-armed Naga. According to Bai Xiaowen's judgment, the Dead Soul Lake should be a fragment of the plane that fell out after the Snake Men of the Abyss and the Black Tide Plane completed their unification. Because the Snake Men won, it appeared in the central area of the continent. However, how should he explain the Eye of Amitabha that was enshrined in the altar of the Snake Men? If the Snake Men were unified, Amitabha's body should be intact. He wouldn't gouge out his eyeballs for his believers to worship, right? Bai Xiaowen shook his head and put away these thoughts. He focused his attention on his surroundings again. Although the thin fog could block his vision, Bai Xiaowen's mental scan was not hindered. Soon, he found a trace of abnormality. Splash! A strong black shadow pounced out of the swamp, bringing a large amount of mud with it as it rushed towards Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen was already prepared. He raised his hand and summoned the skeleton warrior. The skeleton warrior collided with the black shadow in front of him, knocking it back a few steps. Of course, the skeleton warrior was also knocked back a few meters. The difference in strength between the two was not big. After the black shadow was knocked back, it revealed itself. It was a huge crocodile covered in mud. Bai Xiaowen used insight. This crocodile was called the Dead Swamp Crocodile. It was a level 10 elite creature with camouflage, bite, and tail sweeping skills. Its strength was not considered strong. Don't do anything. Bai Xiaowen summoned kits, as well as the Shadow Assassin and other undead summon creatures. In this environment wherein energy lingered, sending the undead creatures was the best choice. The physical recovery of normal life forms was too slow. Under Bai Xiaowen's control, the summoned creatures cooperated well and killed the giant crocodile, but not even a hair fell. This damn ghost fog. If only we could collect undead to camouflage ourselves, Li Shi said. Don't worry. The ghost fog itself is part of the difficulty of a B+ level mission. With such a thick layer of ghost fog, it means that the difficulty of the battle we will encounter will be very low. Bai Xiaowen released his mental power and suddenly frowned. Something else is coming, and there seems to be quite a lot of them. As he spoke, Bai Xiaowen glanced at the bracelet of misfortune. There was a smiley face on it. Before the question mark in Bai Xiaowen's mind turned into an exclamation point, he encountered the creatures that had followed the sound. A group of lobstermen, those large pincers, thick shells, bulging eyes. The familiar formula, the familiar smell. Who are you people? How dare you intrude into this death zone? Do you want to die? The lobsterman at the front had a pincer on his right hand that was larger than his left. He was a commander. He waved his large pincer and shouted at Bai Xiaowen, "Hurry up and leave this place. Otherwise, only death awaits." Oh, Bai Xiaowen glanced at the smiley face on the bracelet of misfortune again. Finally, he slowly took out a piece of scale. That's right. It was the scale that the mysterious organization named Qi had given to Bai Xiaowen and asked him to take good care of it. The moment the lobsterman leader saw the scale, he was stunned. This scale, where did you get it? I don't know. There are words written on the scale. You can see for yourself. Bai Xiaowen handed the scale over. Unexpectedly, the lobsterman leader dodged it like it was a hot iron. He was flustered. No need to look, human, follow me. Li Shi glanced at Bai Xiaowen curiously. Let's follow, these lobstermen shouldn't be hostile. Bai Xiaowen sighed lightly and quickly followed. Soon, the two of them were led by the lobstermen to a village of lobstermen in the swamp. Under the curious gaze of a group of lobstermen, they walked all the way to the end of the village and in front of a small house made of shells. Chapter 967. Knock knock. The lobsterman leader knocked on the wooden door. A slightly hoarse voice sounded from inside the door, "Is this Yar Patel?" The lobsterman leader called Yar Patel replied, "Yes, Lord Prophet, I brought a guest." He has a token from the matriarch. Let him in. The wooden door creaked open. The group of lobstermen stood on both sides. Bai Xiaowen walked in. Li Shi wanted to follow in, but he was stopped by the lobsterman Yar Patel. Sorry, Miss Human, you can't go in. Li Shi looked at Bai Xiaowen with an inquiring gaze. Bai Xiaowen smiled, it's okay. Bai Xiaowen stepped into the core room. Under the dim light, he saw an old lobsterman with a purple shell. Most of the lobstermen outside had green skin. Purple shells represented old age. Hello, honorable guest, I have already predicted your arrival. The old lobsterman's voice sounded. You, prediction? Are you a prophet? Bai Xiaowen said with a grin. That's right. Can a prophet directly tell others what he sees? Bai Xiaowen asked. The old lobsterman was silent for a second. Then he slowly said, well, what I said is not very accurate. I didn't see the prophecy directly. Instead, I learned through divination that someone will come to visit in the near future. Bai Xiaowen suddenly understood. This was probably one of the tricks that the swindler used to pretend to be unfathomable. If he wasn't an expert, he would most likely be fooled by the old lobsterman. It seemed that the old lobsterman's so-called prediction was very different from Bai Xiaowen's ability to see the future. It seemed that the difference was in accuracy. How should I address you? Who is the matriarch represented by this scale token? Bai Xiaowen showed the scale and asked at the same time. My name is Gorik. As for the matriarch's identity, please forgive me for not telling you directly before she says it. The lobsterman prophet Gorik said. Alright, then do you know why your mistress is contacting me? Is it a trade or something else? Gorik said, I'm sorry, honorable guest. However, since you have this token, it means that I must provide you with the greatest assistance. Even if I have to sacrifice the entire swamp lobsterman tribe, I cannot refuse. Is that so? Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes. He did not continue to speculate about the matriarch's identity and purpose. In fact, Bai Xiaowen already had a certain idea in his mind. Your Excellency Prophet Gorik, I've come to the Pale Swamp to look for a ruin that has been sealed for a long time. Here, I need your tribe to send some elite warriors as guides. At the same time, tell me how to move freely in the Pale Swamp as a human. Gorik let out a sigh of relief and said, no problem, no problem. Your 2 requests can be fulfilled. Then, Gorik tapped the ground with his wooden staff, Albert. The lobsterman leader with a large pincer entered. Bring me 2 dried bone raincoats, Prophet Gorik ordered. Soon, the 2 dried bone raincoats were brought in front of Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen looked at them. The dried bone raincoat's frame was woven from decaying bones. As for the woven thread, it was a kind of tough black seaweed. This thing seems a little similar to undead camouflage, Bai Xiaowen silently evaluated in his mind. On the other side, Prophet Gorik had already opened his mouth to introduce, let me introduce to you. According to the records of our ancestors, these 2 withered bone raincoats were woven from the nether grass and drowned bones collected in the swamp. They can effectively resist the invasion of the ghost fog in the swamp. Of course, as generations of lobstermen lived and bred in the swamp, we gradually got used to the environment of the ghost fog in the swamp. These withered bone raincoats are rarely used. Bai Xiaowen put on one of the dried bone raincoats and immediately received a notification. You used a special item, undead camouflage. This item cannot be brought out of the black tide plane. Your negative status, Yin Qi lingering effect has disappeared. Bai Xiaowen exhaled. He felt that he had really integrated into this ghost fog swamp. Gorik said again, honorable guest, Albert is one of the best warriors in our tribe. He has seen the ancient ruins in the swamp. He is the most suitable guide for you. Bai Xiaowen nodded slightly, thank you. You don't have to thank us. You have the matriarch's token, and these were all made by us, Gorik said politely. Next, please take a rest in the tribe. The tribe will take out the stored food for you to enjoy. No need. I'll leave now. Bai Xiaowen rejected the lobsterman prophet's hospitality. He took the two undead camouflage, the dried bone raincoats. With the lobsterman warrior Albert as the guide, he once again stepped into the depths of the swamp with Li Shui. The name Albert sounds familiar. Bai Xiaowen thought for a moment and remembered it. He asked with a smile, "Don't you have a nickname called Headshot?" Albert, who was walking in front, turned his head in confusion. "You know my nickname." Bai Xiaowen smiled without saying a word. In the eyes of the lobsterman leader, Albert, this made him seem even more unfathomable. The scenery in the pale swamp was not unchanging. From the moment Bai Xiaowen stepped into the swamp, he used his mental power to scan the surrounding terrain and monsters into his mind, forming a memory like a map in a game. In front of him, Albert rambled, "I saw the ancient ruins once by chance. It was at the westernmost part of the swamp. The tribe never went that far. At that time, I was being chased by a group of bones. I ran there in a panic." "What do the ruins look like?" Bai Xiaowen asked. "It's a little broken, but it's not noisy," Albert said. "I've never seen such a magnificent building. It's like the palace of the gods on earth." "You went in?" "No." Albert looked regretful. "I hesitated for a long time. In the end, I made up my mind to go in. But when I walked, I realized that I couldn't get close to the ruins. Maybe it was a punishment from the god who built the ruins for my weak will." Bai Xiaowen was deep in thought. Suddenly, in the fog in front of them, a few thin figures slowly approached. "Be careful. These swamp skeletons are difficult to deal with. Don't fight with them for too long," Albert reminded nervously. Chapter 968. Bai Xiaowen had seen these drowned zombies when he was at the Dead Soul Lake. To be safe, he used his insight skill. Drowned zombie, level 10, race, ghoul/zombie demon, attributes, strength 40, agility 25, constitution 36, spirit 10, skill 1, ominous aura, passive. The drowned zombie's breath brings misfortune. Enemies within melee range will be stacked with ominous aura as the battle drags on. Each stack of ominous aura will cause all attributes to drop by 1 point temporarily. Maximum of 10 stacks of ominous aura will disappear after 10 seconds. Skill 2, slow, passive. All damage taken by the drowned zombie is reduced by 25%. The drowned zombie's basic attack speed is reduced by 25%. Sure enough, these new creatures were also called drowned zombies. They were exactly the same as the zombies at the Dead Soul Lake. The slow skill made the drowned zombies more durable, while the ominous aura skill became more powerful as the battle dragged on. After 10 stacks, the enemy's attributes would drop by 10 points, which meant that their attributes would drop by 40 points. It was still very scary. Moreover, the drowned zombies here were standard level 10 creatures. Compared to the zombies at the Dead Soul Lake, their attributes were almost double, and their abilities were much stronger. However, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shui had improved a lot compared to the drowned zombies they had faced before. Li Shui rushed out and used Invincible Slash. He slashed 7 times in a row, stacking his passive skills first. 3 of the drowned zombies died in an instant. If they were intelligent creatures, they would have already fled in all directions. However, these zombies did not know fear. Driven by their instincts, they stretched out their arms and pounced on Li Shui. Black figures appeared in the fog around them. They were the drowned zombies that had been attracted over. In the blink of an eye, dozens of zombies had gathered, forming a small group of monsters. The ominous aura stacked on Li Shui, but so what? Even if all attributes dropped by 10 points, Li Shui still had an overwhelming advantage when his 2 passive skills were fully loaded. Moreover, Li Shui would not give the zombies any time to stack their ominous aura. Her figure was like a butterfly weaving through flowers as she shuttled through the zombie horde. Every time her sword stabbed out, it would definitely pierce through a zombie's throat or head. Bai Xiaowen was a ranged player, so he was even less affected by the ominous aura. He took out his Desert Eagle and continuously fired shots. With the first drop of blood from the Blood Essence Stone, he basically only needed 2 shots to kill 1 player. The lobsterman warrior Albert was dumbfounded. He only regained his senses after the 2 of them finished off the zombies like a tornado. "Honorable guest, you and your entourage are too powerful." Li Shi smiled and took off the undead camouflage on his body. "With this thing, I can finally move freely." "Okay, Albert, how far are we from the ruins?" Bai Xiaowen asked. "We're almost there. Look ahead," Albert said loudly, waving his snake head excitedly. Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi raised their heads. After the corpses of a group of drowned zombies turned cold, in the distant fog, a magnificent memorial appeared in front of the 3 of them. The ruins were very tall, like a temple towering in the clouds. When did it appear? Why didn't I sense it at all? Bai Xiaowen was a little puzzled. With the range of his mental power, if such a large palace appeared in his field of vision, it should have been detected by his mental power long ago. However, when Bai Xiaowen tried to extend his mental power, the temple was empty as far as his eyes could see. It was as if the temple was in another dimension. "Let's continue forward," Bai Xiaowen said. Since it involved a dusty temple, perhaps there were some hidden methods to hide it. The 3 of them continued forward. Along the way, the monsters they encountered were basically dead swamp crocodiles and drowned zombies. Occasionally, they would encounter a few ghosts. However, they had yet to encounter a chieftain-ranked monster. These monsters were no match for Bai Xiaowen and his companion. "How much further do we have to go?" Bai Xiaowen frowned. The 3 of them had already walked a long way, but when they looked at the temple again, it did not seem to shorten at all. It was as if the temple was also moving backward as the 3 of them moved forward. Albert showed a hint of fear. "Sir, I'm afraid the ruins think that we are not qualified to enter and have rejected us. We can't go any further. Going against the will of the gods will anger the gods." "Yar Patel, which god do you believe in?" Bai Xiaowen suddenly turned his head and asked with a smile. "Well, no matter which god I believe in, I should be respectful to all the gods." Bai Xiaowen smiled. "You're right, Albert. Since this relic welcomes us, let's go back the way we came." Albert was startled for a moment before he said happily, "Yes, sir." Li Shi followed behind with a belly full of suspicion, but she did not say anything. The 3 of them walked all the way back. After walking for a long time, Albert opened his mouth and said, "Sir, we're almost at our village. If we go south, we'll be able to leave the swamp." "No, let's continue east," Bai Xiaowen said. "Ah," Albert said in a daze. "But if we go east, we'll go deep into the swamp. Don't be confused. Just go forward." Bai Xiaowen took the lead. Albert hurriedly followed. As they walked, Li Shi suddenly made a sound of surprise. "What do you see?" Bai Xiaowen asked with a smile. "Well, there's a puddle here. There's a waist-high patch of wormwood beside it. Whether it's the shape of the puddle or the location of the wormwood, I seem to have seen it all before," Li Shi said. "Let's continue forward." "Hey, there's a mound with a high elevation here. It has appeared before," Li Shi exclaimed. "It seems that when we were walking west, the same terrain appeared, but the order was reversed. Well, it seems like you've discovered the problem." Facing Li Shi and Albert's gaze, Bai Xiaowen said, "Actually, the actual size of this swamp is much smaller than it looks. There's a mirror maze here. With the lobster village as the central axis, the west and east sides of the swamp are the 2 sides of the mirror. Just now, when we were walking west, we were actually moving towards the mirror image of the ruins. Naturally, we were going in the opposite direction. Then, the real ruins are in this direction?" The lobsterman warrior Albert asked doubtfully. "See for yourself, we're almost there," Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. Albert looked forward and gazed into the distance. Plop. He knelt down. In front of them, the ruins of a magnificent temple were faintly discernible in the fog. Compared to the previous unreachable temple, this temple seemed more real. The abnormal feeling of alienation from the other dimension finally disappeared. Chapter 969. Why can't I go in? Albert looked at Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi at the entrance of the ruins with a dumbfounded expression. This feeling was very strange. The ruins were clearly right in front of him, but there was an invisible barrier that kept Yar Patel outside, preventing him from entering. If everyone could not enter, it would be a psychological balance. However, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi did not encounter any obstacles and directly entered. Albert was a little suspicious of the shrimp. "Okay, Mr. Albert, please go back," Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. "As for why you can't enter, I can probably think of some reasons. Well, when we come back, we will visit the lobsterman tribe again." Watching Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi's figures disappear into the ruins, Albert felt lost. After being in a daze for a while, Albert quickly returned to the tribe. After telling Elder Gorik about this strange scene, he didn't receive any positive response. As for Albert's suggestion that the tribe send a team to explore the ruins together, Gorik warned him, "Don't be too curious about things that are beyond your ability." Although Albert was rejected by the prophet, he did not give up. Instead, he secretly discussed with a group of lobsterman warriors he was familiar with and quietly headed to the ruins in the eastern swamp. After a long and difficult journey. "Sir Albert, we've already walked so far. Where are the ruins you mentioned?" A lobsterman warrior looked around. I don't know either." Albert looked around in confusion. "Strange, according to the time we set off, we should have arrived a long time ago. But why haven't I seen it? I didn't choose the wrong direction." The lobstermen scattered and looked around, but they did not find anything. In the end, Albert could only resentfully return with his people. "Albert won't be able to enter." Bai Xiaowen said slowly, "This ruin should have some restrictions, whether it's an illusion or a restriction. The purpose of the Creator is very clear, to prohibit creatures other than humans from entering here." "Why?" Li Shi asked. "I've looked through the ancient records. In different ancient records, this temple was mentioned. Some were called the Sacred Hall, and some were called the Zenith. They all had different names. I agree with the name Temple of the Earth given in the book Song of the Forgotten Kings." Bai Xiaowen said, "This temple should contain clues on how to defeat Amitabha, or even how to heal the earth. This is a relic left behind by the Guardian sect. In order to prevent those creatures from obtaining the inheritance of the Guardian sect, it's normal for them to set up restrictions." What Bai Xiaowen said was what he had obtained from reading ancient records. Now that Li Shi had arrived at the Temple of the Earth God, what he said did not violate the rules of confidentiality set by the prophet. The two of them walked along a smooth stone corridor. On both sides were exquisitely carved pillars. Some led to the garden, while others led to the courtyard. Whether it was the garden or the courtyard, they were all dilapidated. One could only imagine the grandeur of the temple from the fine patterns carved out of the marble. Suddenly, Bai Xiaowen's eyes flashed and he stopped in his tracks. His eyes swept toward his left wrist. He was expressionless. Level 3 danger level, medium danger level. His spiritual scan was highly condensed. Bai Xiaowen retracted his spiritual power. With Li Shi's shared vision, several faint shadows appeared around them. "Be careful." Bai Xiaowen used insight. Li Shi reacted quickly. He held two swords in his hands and protected Bai Xiaowen's back. While Bai Xiaowen used insight, he also released the butcher to hold the line. Information came back. Ancient Shield Bearer Heroic Soul, Elite Level 10, Race, Undead/Soul Race, Attributes, Strength 37, Agility 55, Physique 39, Spirit 21, Skill 1, Residual Instinct. The ancient heroic soul retains the battle techniques that it had honed in its lifetime. The corresponding battle specialty is by default equivalent to its level. Skill 2, Powerful Soul Power, Passive. All the ancient heroic soul's attacks will carry spiritual damage based on its level, treated as magic damage. Active activation of this skill will cause the ancient heroic soul to temporarily burst out with soul power. Attack speed, casting speed, and movement speed will increase by 30%. Skill 3, Soul Collapse, Passive. After the death of the ancient heroic soul, the soul will collapse into a point for a short time, and then it will trigger a violent soul energy explosion, dealing mental damage based on level to all enemies within melee range, treated as magic damage. Skill 4, Elegy of Souls LV2, increase 200 additional health points. Bai Xiaowen first scanned the information of the ancient shield-bearer heroic soul. The other party was indeed a shadow holding a hammer and shield, matching its name. At the same time as the shield-bearer heroic soul, the assassin heroic soul, the spellcaster heroic soul, and so on. Their skills were more or less the same. Leave immediately after killing the target. Don't stay on the spot. After sharing the information, Bai Xiaowen quickly came up with a countermeasure. Go and kill the 2 spellcaster heroic souls. Leave the rest to me. Li Shi agreed and slashed with his sword. In the next second, he flashed dozens of meters away, instantly getting rid of the shield-bearer heroic soul's obstruction and closing in on the 2 spellcaster heroic souls. The awakening skill, Invincible Slash, was really useful. Perhaps because of the remnant memory of the shield-bearer heroic soul, it actually had high combat intelligence. It quickly turned around to protect the spellcaster heroic soul. However, Bai Xiaowen waved his hand and summoned the skeleton sword shield-bearer to stop it. The Desert Eagle continued to shoot out flames. With a flash of red light, an ancient assassin heroic soul rushed over, stabbing 2 sharp daggers at the back of Bai Xiaowen's head. Bai Xiaowen had leaned forward to dodge, but he was still hit by the long handle of the dagger and was temporarily stunned. The assassin heroic soul's level 10 combat ability was indeed unique. Of course, that red light was also the key. The heroic soul of the assassin had activated the powerful soul skill. Then, the 2 ancient archer heroic souls also activated powerful soul power at the same time, increasing their attack speed by 30%. Arrows whistled through the air. Fortunately, Bai Xiaowen's heart of sincerity was fully stacked, and the duration of the stun was extremely short. He reacted before the arrow could reach him, allowing Butcher to take a step forward and block the arrow with his body. Bai Xiaowen switched to the Cold Winter Wand and shot out a frost shard, dealing additional magic damage to the ancient assassin heroic soul. Then, the necromancer struck it with a lightning strike. The ancient assassin heroic soul was insta-killed. Its surging soul power quickly collapsed. Not good. Bai Xiaowen had no interest in the necromancer heroic soul's self-destruction. On the other side, Li Shi had already activated lure and pulled Bai Xiaowen to his side. However, the expected explosion did not happen. Bai Xiaowen looked at the number jumping on the black spirit stone and was stunned. Chapter 970. 30 points. A level 10 elite ancient heroic soul gave Bai Xiaowen 30 points of black soul stone growth and soul essence points. It was the same amount as a leader of the same level, and 3 times more than a normal elite. Bai Xiaowen looked at the other ancient heroic souls with a fervent look in his eyes. But that was not all. Delifa's surprised voice sounded, "Master, where did you capture these incomplete souls? It's amazing." In the former Guardian Sect temple. These heroic souls should have been warriors of the Guardian Sect when they were alive. In the Song of the Forgotten Kings, it was mentioned that the Elijah sect built this temple, which actually represented the Guardian Sect. After a pause, Bai Xiaowen asked again, "Do these incomplete souls have any special value, Delifa?" "That's obvious, Master." Delifa said excitedly, "These heroic souls are fundamentally different from normal monsters. They don't have a complete soul consciousness, and only residual battle instincts are left. These battle instincts are the essence of battle skills that have been tempered thousands of times, and the most important thing is, they can be absorbed by your summoned creatures without any restrictions." "Without any restrictions? You mean, the summoned creatures that have already absorbed the souls of other elites can also absorb the souls of these ancient heroic souls?" Bai Xiaowen confirmed. "I have to correct you, my dear master." Delifa's face appeared on the black soul stone, revealing a charming smile. The Black Soul Stone doesn't absorb the complete souls of the ancient heroic souls, but only a portion of battle skills. No matter how many times these battle skills are absorbed, it won't have any substantial effect on the summoned creatures. It will only allow their related battle skills to reach level 10. After a pause, Delifa said with some regret, "Unfortunately, the summoned creature's strength doesn't depend on their own battle skills, but on the level of your skill. They are different from me." Among Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures, apart from Delifa and Keats who had the ability to move on their own, the other summoned creatures all required Bai Xiaowen's meticulous control in order to unleash their greatest combat power. Therefore, no matter how high the combat abilities of the other summoned creatures were, it was just a matter of numbers. It had no actual effect on the battle. Bai Xiaowen had to rely on his own combat abilities to control them in battle. That's not a problem. Bai Xiaowen heaved a sigh of relief. He suppressed the surprise in his heart and said, "I can learn quickly by sharing the combat expertise of the summoned creatures." "You should have known this already, Delifa." Delifa was suddenly enlightened. "Yes, Master, when you practice your long-handled weapon specialty, you use this method of sharing memories. But this way, Master will have to learn a lot more." "No problem." Bai Xiaowen counted the types of ancient heroic souls present. The heroic soul of the ancient shield wielder represented a LV-10 shield mastery specialty. The heroic soul of the ancient assassin had a level 10 advanced single-handed sword technique. The heroic soul of the ancient spellcaster had a level 10 meditation specialty. The heroic soul of the ancient archer had a level 10 advanced shooting specialty. In the distance, there were new ancient heroic souls joining the battle. Among them, there was no lack of heroic souls wielding two-handed swords and even heavy hammers. Bai Xiaowen was very excited as he watched. "Come on. The more the better." Delifa did not participate in the battle. Instead, he stayed in the soul crystal and was busy fusing the remnant souls. It was important to note that the soul fusion was not arranged casually. It depended on the specific compatibility. For example, the heroic soul of the ancient shield wielder was the most suitable for the fusion of the skeleton wielder. The goal was to upgrade the advanced equipment, shield mastery. However, the skeleton wielder's aptitude was average. Feeding it one or two heroic soul fragments of the ancient shield wielder would not increase it much. It was still very difficult for it to directly reach LV-10. Delifa focused on feeding one skeleton wielder. After feeding it 3 heroic soul fragments of the ancient shield wielder, its shield mastery specialty rose from level 5 to level 6. In comparison, the shadow assassin's aptitude was much better. One heroic soul fragment of the ancient assassin had raised its single-handed sword technique from level 5 to level 7. The second fragment had even raised its single-handed sword technique to level 8. The undead demon arcane master's improvement speed was similar to the shadow assassin's. As for the skeleton warrior, it was much slower. It was probably because it had not absorbed a complete soul to mutate. Bai Xiaowen told Delifa not to feed the skeleton warrior for the time being. Instead, he kept the corresponding heroic soul fragments until the skeleton warrior mutated after absorbing a powerful soul. As for which soul the skeleton warrior should use, Bai Xiaowen was not in a hurry. In his black soul crystal, there was a group of intermediate knight leaders who used two-handed swords. There was no lack of backup heroic souls. But now, Bai Xiaowen's horizons had been broadened. He wanted to wait a little longer and see if he could get a heroic soul that used two-handed swords. After killing more than 10 heroic souls, Bai Xiaowen finally cleared the corridor. At the end of the corridor was a thick and heavy stone door with many strange patterns carved on it. Beside the door was a stone tablet as tall as a person. There were also some simple lines and letters carved on it. Bai Xiaowen studied the stone tablet and the door for a while. This is a kind of code. Pictures are used instead of letters. Bai Xiaowen said, "Look at the stone tablet. It has already written down the correspondence between the shapes and the letters. For example, a triangle corresponds to alpha, and 2 crossed lines correspond to beta. Let me memorize it." The red light in his eyes flickered slightly as he imprinted the contents of the stone tablet into his mind. There were a total of 5 pairs of letters and pictures on the stone tablet. As for the stone door, it was filled with strange patterns that were hard to recognize. There were 2 rows with 4 pictures at the top and bottom. What do these 8 pictures mean? Are they related to the code on the stone tablet? Li Shi asked. Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes and studied the 8 pictures. Suddenly, he smiled and said, "No, this is just a simple picture reasoning question." Interesting. It seems like the Guardian Sect's ancestors liked this kind of thing. Back in the latent shadow labyrinth, the forked paths were different reasoning questions that hinted at the correct path. Picture reasoning questions? Li Shi repeated. Yes, the 4 pictures in the top row are the root of the question. The 4 pictures in the bottom row are the options. We need to find the correct option based on the pattern in the top row and press the picture. Bai Xiaowen gestured. Did you notice that there are cracks around the 4 pictures in the bottom row? This is a moving mechanism. It's just that it's covered by moss and dust, so it's not easy to see. Li Shi looked at Bai Xiaowen in confusion. Why are you looking at me? Even though Bai Xiaowen was solving the question seriously, he could feel Li Shi's gaze. Nothing. Xiaowen, do you want to tell me how you could tell that this is a picture reasoning question from the 8 pictures without any hint? There's no hint at all. Li Shi found it hard to understand. He could tell that there was a question among the 8 pictures. I've already explained it. Bai Xiaowen smiled. There are cracks around the 4 pictures, which means that they're all buttons. It's not hard to make the connection. If there's another reason, it would be that the 4 pictures above are too deliberate. They contain the same pattern. What pattern? They're all symmetrical pictures. Bai Xiaowen said simply, therefore, we can conclude that these pictures are produced by folding photocopies. If we fold them back and cover half of them, we'll be able to see them more clearly. The first picture looks like 3 circles arranged in a row. What about now? What do you think it is? Li Shi suddenly realized. This is the Latin letter alpha. Li Shi looked at the second picture in the first row and said, then the one that looks like the traditional Chinese character door in ancient Huaxia should be beta. Then there's gamma comma delta. Bai Xiaowen nodded and said, that's right, so our choice should be this one. He pressed his palm on the third picture in the bottom row. There was a rumbling sound, and the moss on the stone door peeled off. In the midst of the flying dust, the heavy door slowly sank, revealing a second corridor. Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi stepped inside. After killing another group of ancient heroic spirits, the two encountered the second stone door and stone tablet. Like the first door, the stone tablet had pictures and letters, but the stone door had different pictures. For Bai Xiaowen, this kind of puzzle solving was just a rest after a battle. It was a warm-up for his super brain. Chapter 971. In front of the third stone door. After reading the text on the stone tablet again, Bai Xiaowen said, I understand now. I understand now. The process of solving riddles is actually the process of learning the ancient Guardian Sect's code language. Every stele has a part of the code language for comparison. So far, I have accumulated 3 steles. I have a basic understanding of the ancient Guardian Sect's code language system. Is that so? Then are we about to reach the finish line? Li Shi reacted quickly and said. Bai Xiaowen nodded. That's right. Each stone tablet is like a piece of a puzzle. Together, they form the ancient Guardian Sect's code language system. According to my calculations, only 1 or 2 stone tablets are left to complete the puzzle. In other words, we still need to go through 1 or 2 more stone doors. As Bai Xiaowen revealed the riddle again and pressed the correct mechanism, the stone door opened again. As the two stepped into the new corridor, the stone door behind them rose and closed again. Li Shi looked back at the closed stone door and tried to push it. However, the magic patterns on the stone door flickered and did not move. These stone doors can't be opened again. Probably. I guess we can only open them from the inside after we solve the final puzzle of the temple, which is the final inscription, Bai Xiaowen said. Then we can't review the code language recorded on the previous stone tablets. Li Shi's beautiful eyes widened. The final inscription should use the code language system, right? What if we forget? Bai Xiaowen said with a smile, if we forget, we won't be able to solve the final inscription. We will fail the mission. Well, that's too unfriendly for underachievers. Li Shi muttered, only someone as smart as you would be able to memorize all the steals along the way without missing a single detail. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said, no. If it were other awakened ones, if they noticed the code language on the stone tablets and considered its importance, they would use writing to memorize the inscription. It would only take a little more effort than me. Such a design actually tests whether the intruder is careful enough and whether they have excellent intelligence-gathering skills. As they spoke, the two of them were attacked by another wave of ancient heroic souls. There were more than 20 of them this time. And behind the formation of these ancient heroic souls, there was a huge heroic soul that was 3 meters tall. This huge heroic soul did not hold any weapons, and its body seemed a little illusory. Bai Xiaowen used insight. Ancient Prophet Heroic Soul, Leader Level 10, Race, Undead/Soul, Attributes, Strength 21, Agility 42, Constitution 58, Spirit 90, Skill 1, Great Prophecy. The ancient heroic soul interferes with the soul's spirit to cast prophecy spells to attack. Every prophecy spell cast will reduce the user's HP, 1% to 10%, skill, the ancient heroic of the heroic soul of the ancient of the heroic soul. Allies within a large area will receive plus 10% attack power and plus 10% critical rate. Skill 3, Soul Collapse, omitted, Skill 4. Skill 5, Soul Singer Level 3, gain 500 extra HP and 50% toughness. This guy is so strong. He doesn't look like an ordinary leader. Li Shi quickly scanned the information and said, what does the first skill mean? I don't know, but according to the rules, this kind of expensive skill will not be weak. Bai Xiaowen took a deep breath and directly summoned a large number of summoned creatures. This should be the final boss of the B+ level main plot mission. Go all out. The butcher activated Rotten Toxin and landed in the middle of a group of heroic souls, waving his giant snake scepter wildly. Keats and the Shadow Assassin were airdropped beside the ancient prophet heroic soul at the same time. Bai Xiaowen's purpose was to delay the movement of this leader and prevent it from casting spells as much as possible. This was also the usual tactic to deal with spiritual-type leaders. Li Shi held his sword and used Invincible Slash to crash into the group of heroic souls. However, the ancient prophet heroic soul only pointed at Li Shi from afar and did not make any unnecessary movements. Li Shi suddenly felt the air around him constantly compressing, and his movement speed dropped by 50%. After the Invincible Slash ended, it was very difficult for him to dodge the siege of so many heroic souls. After Li Shi was hit, a voice that seemed to be formed by the vibration of the air slowly sounded. Slow down. Bai Xiaowen hurriedly commanded the skeleton warrior to swing its sword and charge forward like a whirlwind, knocking away all the heroic souls along the way. The skeleton warrior and the butcher, one in front and one behind, finally protected Li Shi. Keats was equipped with bone claws, and the Shadow Assassin launched an assassination from behind, constantly eating away at the ancient prophet heroic soul's HP. However, the damage output of the two was not strong, and they could not cause effective damage for a while. Li Shi was covered, and he no longer fought while being severely slowed. Instead, he stood on the spot and stabbed with his sword like the wind, killing the melee heroic souls. His DPS was also very high. However, 10 seconds later, the ancient prophet heroic soul pointed at Li Shi again, and glowing chains fell from the void, firmly binding Li Shi's limbs. The sound of the vibration of the air sounded again, and this time, it was still 2 words. Shackles. Be careful, I received a notification. I think I know what this guy's great prophecy spell is. Bai Xiaowen waved his magic wand and kept casting frost shards to cover Li Shi. He said in a deep voice, "Great prophecy spell can be seen as a skill that allows the user's wishes to come true. As long as that guy casts the spell, he can turn his imagination into reality. This is the mental interference of reality." Li Shi was firmly bound, and this time, he could not even draw his sword. An ancient shield-bearer heroic soul rushed over and knocked the skeleton warrior away. Two assassin heroic souls rushed in, and the cold light of their daggers stabbed at Li Shi's vital points. Bai Xiaowen opened his hands slightly, and an invisible pressure spread out, and all the enemies were stunned in an instant. Although the ancient prophet heroic soul, as the leader, quickly got rid of the pressure, Bai Xiaowen's deterrence level 7 mental force field still made the other heroic souls stiff and unable to move. Li Shi, who had escaped death, gasped and said, "Then isn't this guy invincible? What if he wants me dead?" Bai Xiaowen smiled and shook his head. "That's impossible." "Well, let me test an idea first." Bai Xiaowen opened his palm, and a spell charm turned into a red light that shot into Li Shi's body. The berserk charm came into effect, and Li Shi immediately broke free from the shackles condensed by the light. After regaining her freedom, she was in high spirits. She immediately activated Unparalleled Demon and God, Demonic Fire Dance, and Lord's Wrath. After casting Blood Drain on a shield-wielder heroic soul, she charged into the group of ancient heroic souls in her strongest state. The berserk charm's continuous control immunity and damage reduction were limited, and Li Shi did not want to waste a single second. Bai Xiaowen kept casting frost shards and said, "Just as I thought, great prophecy also has a priority, and it's definitely not more than 7 priority. That's why the berserk charm could nullify it. Since this skill has a priority restriction, it naturally has other restrictions as well. Getting what you want doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want." After a pause, Bai Xiaowen continued, "The most important thing is the cost of using it. I've been paying attention to its HP. When the first prophecy, slow, took effect, its HP decreased by 1%, but the second shackle reduced its HP by a full 5%. Considering that it has a maximum HP of 10%, it's impossible for this guy to use prophecy on its HP. When Li Shi went berserk, he really killed anyone who stood in his way. Like a whirlwind, he quickly wiped out all the elite ancient heroic souls. If it were any other awaken, they would have to worry about the heroic souls self-destructing after they died, but Bai Xiaowen's Black Soul Stone made these heroic souls lose their self-destructing ability for no reason. The latter was not a threat at all. Li Shi, who was full of murderous intent, quickly led the summoned creatures and began to besiege the boss. This boss with almost zero melee ability was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered after being closed in on. What was the use of great prophecy that could be cast once every 10 seconds? However, Bai Xiaowen was still cautious and did not send the Wrath Claw. When the boss HP was reduced to half, it finally showed its power again and raised its 2 illusory arms. Bai Xiaowen felt a stabbing pain in his head, as if a steel needle had pierced it, and he felt dizzy. The other summoned creatures also groaned and roared, as if they were in great pain. The ancient prophet's heroic soul activated its undetected skill, Spirit Storm. Chapter 972. Spirit Storm. The ancient prophet's heroic soul unleashes its immense spirit power, causing severe spirit damage, treated as magic damage, to enemies within a large area, radius, 500 meters. The target will be stunned for up to 5 seconds. The higher the target's spirit power, the shorter the duration of the stunned state. After releasing the Spirit Storm, the ancient prophet's heroic soul immediately pointed at Li Shi again and cast Greater Prophecy. This time, it was a damaging skill. Destroy. At the same time, the ancient prophet's spirit's HP suddenly decreased by 10%. A beam of destructive death ray shot out from the illusory fingertip. It should be noted that the berserk curse on Li Shi's body had expired. She was now stunned for 5 seconds. Faced with this beam of death ray, Li Shi immediately used the mature green lotus seed and decisively activated the wish shield granted by the demonic ghost mask. A layer of pale golden light shrouded her body. Whoosh! the shield turned into countless golden light spots and dissipated. That beam of death ray of destruction, however, did not weaken and still hit Li Shi. In fact, if Li Shi's invincible slash was more proficient, she could have avoided this single target spell. However, she was still at the beginner stage, and it took her some time to react to the CC. Therefore, she had no time to dodge and could only activate her shield. With a grunt, Li Shi was knocked back 2 steps, and her HP suddenly dropped below 50%. However, she did not retreat. Instead, she charged toward the ancient prophet's heroic soul. A leader who specialized in spirit was naturally at her weakest state when her skills were on cooldown. On the other hand, an agility-based warrior like Li Shi relied on normal attacks to deal damage. Even if her HP was low, as long as her attributes were not weakened, she could still deal high damage. Bai Xiaowen's spirit was quite close to that of the ancient prophet's heroic soul. In addition, the duration of Sincere Heart's control was reduced by 15%, so he woke up in less than a second. He immediately activated Blood Rage and the Cold Winter Wand's multiple shards. Together with the 5 glacier spikes he had stored, he shot them out. The ancient prophet's heroic soul was dead. Soul Collapse's passive self-destruct ability also failed to activate, and all of his remaining soul power was sucked away. The number on Bai Xiaowen's Black Soul Stone jumped. This level 10 boss had given him a total of 200 growth points in soul essence. What a bountiful harvest! Bai Xiaowen was overjoyed when he saw that the Black Soul Stone had met the upgrade requirements. This time, he had killed more than 60 primordial heroic souls in the Dusty Temple. Each heroic soul provided him with 30 growth points. In total, he had more than 1,800 growth points. In addition to the Sand Scorpion Man's Nest and the Naga Aberration, Bai Xiaowen's Black Soul Stone had reached level 6, 5395,000. He had accumulated 4,320 soul essence. Note 1, I can finally reach level 7. Bai Xiaowen was not upgraded for the time being. After the death of the ancient prophet's heroic soul, the stone wall behind it also trembled slightly, and dust rustled down. A large number of relief sculptures appeared on the stone wall. The lines were simple and powerful, and the curves were beautiful. There were people, beasts, and nagas on these relief sculptures. Of course, the most eye-catching one was a gigantic monster with 9 heads whose body covered the sky and covered the sun. These relief sculptures must have recorded the battle between the ancient guardian sect and the nagas, as well as the destruction of Amitabha, Li Shi said. Bai Xiaowen nodded, but his gaze did not stay on the relief sculptures for long. Instead, he focused on the relief sculptures on the stone wall. In front of the stone wall, there were 3 tall stone tablets. On them were densely engraved strange patterns. There were triangles, crosses, squares. This should be the inscriptions I need to decipher, Bai Xiaowen said with a sigh. The tremors on the ground became more and more obvious. Is this place going to collapse? Li Shi's face was pale. It should be. Therefore, the last step of the mission is to decipher the meaning of these inscriptions before the earthquake, and then escape the Dusty Temple. Bai Xiaowen smiled and walked to the first stone tablet. For Bai Xiaowen, who could master a foreign language in a day, the Guardian Sect's code language system was too simple. As long as he remembered the corresponding code language in front of the first 3 stone doors, he could translate the inscriptions in front of him into Latin letters and form sentences. Moments later, Bai Xiaowen walked to the second stone tablet. The signs of the earthquake were becoming more and more obvious. Some dust and gravel began to fall from the dome. Li Shi was a little nervous, but she held back and did not disturb Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen noticed her expression. He walked to the third stone tablet and said with a smile, "Don't worry. There should be a long time before the earthquake happens. At least 1 or 2 hours." Li Shi was dumbfounded. Why? This is a B+ level main mission. Bai Xiaowen smiled. Generally, the awakened ones have to go through a lot to come here. The rules of the spiritual realm will give them a certain amount of time to decipher the inscriptions. For ordinary people, it will not be less than 2 hours. Otherwise, the mission will not be completed. Those who can decipher the inscriptions faster will be able to buy more time. At this point, Bai Xiaowen pointed at himself. In terms of deciphering speed, I don't think anyone can decipher the inscriptions faster than me. In fact, these earthquake signs are also a kind of external stimulus. In such a tense environment, some people will erupt with greater potential, while others will panic and their abilities will be greatly reduced. Whether it is to the rules of the spiritual realm or to the sages of the guardian sect, the former is more valuable. I understand. Li Shi took a deep breath. I'm not nervous. In less than half an hour, Bai Xiaowen finished deciphering the inscriptions. The spiritual realm's rules prompted him. Main mission, Dusty Temple, has been completed and will be automatically submitted. In the next 12 days. Omitted. Bai Xiaowen looked at the extra time for free exploration and breathed a sigh of relief. Counting the free exploration time saved, he could stay in the Black Tide realm for nearly 20 days. Xiaowen, let's find a way to get out of here quickly, Li Shi said. Bai Xiaowen said, don't worry. Just at the end of the third inscription, I got some valuable information. There are good things buried in this temple. He walked quickly to the stone wall and groped in a corner for a while before he found a prominent round stone. Bai Xiaowen turned the round stone twice to the left and then 3.5 times to the right. Asterisk rumble, asterisk on the shaky dome, a series of magic patterns suddenly lit up, and the light gathered into a milky white light shield. Then, the tremors on the dome and the ground stopped. This is a reinforcement rune, Bai Xiaowen explained. By activating the mechanism, it can delay the collapse of the temple. Come on, our time is limited. As Bai Xiaowen turned the stone wall, the relief on the opposite side of the stone wall split straight down the middle, and a deep secret chamber appeared in front of them. Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi walked into the secret chamber together. In the secret chamber, there was only one stone statue in the shape of the famous thinker's sculpture from BC. The only difference between this statue and the thinker was that it wore a green gold crown on its head. Strangely, there was no dust on the crown, as if the endless years had not left a trace on it. Behind the thinker's stone statue, there was a stone pillar with a round orb shining with white light on it. The orb of teleportation. Bai Xiaowen was quite knowledgeable about the teleportation devices in the Black Tide realm. In the secret chamber of the latent shadow maze, there was an orb of teleportation that was connected to an unknown area. Li Shi reacted quickly. This should be a means of escape for us. Actually, it's not. But, let's take the green gold crown first, and then touch the orb of teleportation. Bai Xiaowen, who had deciphered the inscriptions, had seen through many secrets of the guardian sect. He quickly stepped forward and reached for the crown. Chapter 973. Nothing unexpected happened. When Bai Xiaowen touched the crown, he received a notification from the spiritual realm's law. You have obtained a special equipment, Diviner's Crown. This equipment cannot be brought out of the Dark Tide Bitwall. Bai Xiaowen was already mentally prepared for this. He focused on the Diviner's Crown's attributes. Diviner's Crown, exclusive binding, quality, special, equipment requirement, exclusive, equipment position, head, does not occupy the equipment slot, attribute, none, additional skill 1, spiritual vision, passive. When you are in a meditative state, your mental scan can transform into mental tentacles that can extend to an unlimited distance. Additional skill 2, insight, you can see the target's weakness and mark it, increasing your and your allies' critical strike rate and critical strike damage against the target by 10% and 50%. This skill has no cooldown, but it will consume mental power according to the target's level and template. Additional skill 3, heroic spirit's wish, locked. Durability, never wear out. Description, the diviner can see further than ordinary people. This is a gift from the heavens, and also a heavy mission. Bai Xiaowen tried to put on the diviner's crown. As expected, the crown did not occupy the original equipment slot. Instead, it turned into a greenish gold light and disappeared. If Bai Xiaowen wanted, he could also set the diviner's crown to display. In that case, the original agate silver ring would be revealed. After Bai Xiaowen took off the diviner's crown, the surface of the thinker's statue suddenly crawled with magic patterns, and then projected onto the orb of teleportation behind the statue. The orb of teleportation emitted a soft light. So this orb of teleportation has an activation process? Bai Xiaowen called out. Shi, let's go. The two pressed their hands on the orb of teleportation at the same time. A slight sense of weightlessness came over them, and their figures disappeared at the same time. The surrounding scenery felt distorted and changed. After some time, it finally stopped. Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi looked around. Hey, this doesn't seem to be the Ashen Swamp anymore, said Li Shi. This was a naturally formed underground cave that seemed to be completely sealed off from the outside world. There were only a few skeletons lying on the ground, their bodies and clothes were already rotten. In the center of the cave, there was also a pillar with a teleportation orb embedded at the top. Bai Xiaowen looked around and said, "This is another secret stronghold of the Guardian cult. It is very far from the temple in the Ashen Swamp. We can get another piece of special equipment here." What equipment? Is it the same as the Prophet Crown? Li Shi asked. Bai Xiaowen smiled and shook his head. He walked up to the pillar and laid with the orb of teleportation and carefully observed the patterns on the pillar for a while. According to a special pattern, he knocked on different parts of the pillar, the length and the weight were all different. After several knocks, the pillar rumbled and cracked along the streamlined pattern. Whoosh! The light was incomparably dazzling. A magic wand about a foot long and as thick as a thumb slowly flew out of the crack in the pillar and floated in front of Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi. At the top of the magic wand, there were 3 transparent round beads that looked like soap bubbles. The 3 round beads slowly rotated around the top of the magic wand. The dazzling light just now came from them. Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi covered their eyes with their hands. After a few seconds, the light of the 3 round beads dimmed and became much softer. They looked like transparent pearls. Bai Xiaowen stretched out his hand. A notification came from the spiritual realm. You have obtained a special equipment, Mara's Wisdom, Chain Wand. This equipment cannot be brought out of the Black Tide Bitwall. Li Shi said in surprise, the name of this wand, it sounds like a divine item. This is one of the 7 divine items, the weapon used by the Prophet, said Bai Xiaowen with a smile. At the same time, he checked the attributes of this divine item. This chain wand was similar to the hidden sword and shield found in the Orc Kingdom. It looked like a single-handed equipment, but in fact, it could be divided into a dual-wielding equipment. After it was divided, the main body of the wand would be the main weapon. Mara's Wisdom, exclusive binding, quality, special, equipment requirement, exclusive, equipment position, main hand, attributes, additional attack power 1-3, spirit +6, additional skill 1, light of wisdom, basic spell. After chanting for 1 second, a beam of light of wisdom is shot at the target, causing light magic damage. The damage type of the light of wisdom is automatically adapted to the target's weakness resistance. Cooldown, 1, 5 seconds, additional skill 2, Mara's Gift, 1/2 locked, additional skill 3, Holy Convergence, locked, durability, never wear out, description, Mara's Wisdom helps us see the way forward. As for the 3 revolving beads, they were his secondary equipment. Ternary magic beads, exclusive binding, quality, special, equipment requirement, exclusive, equipment position, offhand, attributes, spirit +6, additional skill 1, spell amplification, passive. Every damage spell you cast will be amplified by the spell energy of the ternary magic beads. The amplification will be in the order of 1x, 2x, and 3x. Active activation of the spell energy amplification will strengthen your next damage spell by the maximum multiplier, and the damage amplification will be 3x. Additional skill 2, Mara's Gift, 1/2 locked, durability, never wear out, description, Mara's Wisdom helps us overcome the difficulties of moving forward. It was worth mentioning that when Bai Xiaowen equipped the wand and the magic beads in his left and right hands respectively, replacing the cold winter wand and the spell book of ravings, the additional skill 2, Mara's gift, became 2 halves, and was activated. A great heat current flowed into Bai Xiaowen's palms, along his arms, and spread throughout his body. Bai Xiaowen groaned. He could feel the attribute of this great heat current. It leaned towards the spirit and rushed all the way to his brain. Waves of piercing pain came, and Bai Xiaowen could not help but squat down. He felt dizzy. However, Bai Xiaowen's left eye flashed with a red light. The great heat current seemed to be blocked by an invisible barrier and could not enter Bai Xiaowen's brain. Instead, it quickly gathered outside the barrier. The piercing pain in Bai Xiaowen's brain disappeared. He had a strange feeling, as if he had a second brain. The great heat current surged into Bai Xiaowen's brain and formed a virtual brain. The spiritual realm's precepts prompted him. Frowny face, you have obtained Mara's gift. Your template has been temporarily upgraded. Currently, it is at the Overlord level. Your basic priority level +1. Currently, it is 5. All your attributes have been temporarily strengthened. Your spiritual power has been strengthened. You have obtained temporary skill column *1. You have obtained a unique skill of the Overlord level. After a series of notifications, Bai Xiaowen finally came back to his senses. His first reaction was to open his attribute panel. Chapter 974. Bai Xiaowen, Overlord Level 8, Mara's Gift, Race, Humanoid/Human, Profession, Shaman, Talent, Insight, Attributes, Strength 34 + 10, Agility 38 + 10, Constitution 38 + 10, Spirit 87 + 40, Overlord Skill, Wisdom Halo, Profession Skill, Mind Link, Battle Skills, Deterrence, Summon Wrath Claw, Spell Switch, Kusanagi Sword 2, Empty. The profession skill did not change, and the first 4 battle skills did not change either. There was only an empty skill column with the word Special at the back. A temporary skill column. What's the use of it? The skills learned are only LV1, and it won't increase my combat power by much. When the temporary skill column disappears, I'll have to return it. What a waste of a skill book. Bai Xiaowen frowned and looked at the word Special in the temporary skill column. The spiritual realm's rules gave him a reply. Under Mara's gift, the temporary skill column you obtain is special. After learning any skill, the skill's level will match your profession level. When you lose the temporary skill column, the skill will be turned back into a skill book. Freeloading? Bai Xiaowen smiled. This way, he would not lose out. The spiritual realm's rules were too fair and selfless. However, he still had to pay attention to the choice of skills. According to the description, only when he lost the temporary skill column would he regain the original skill book. If he chose an unsuitable skill and had to forget it, he would not be able to regain the skill book. What Bai Xiaowen was really concerned about was his Overlord skill, Wisdom Halo. Wisdom Halo, passive. Mara's wisdom has an enlightening effect on allies in a large area. Reduces the MP consumption of skills by half, increases the casting speed by 50%, and can cast while moving. Active activation of the Wisdom Halo will cause a slow effect on enemies in a large area. The MP consumption will be doubled, and casting speed will be halved. All spells and skills will take at least 1 second to cast, including instant spells. Active activation of the Wisdom Halo will consume 1 MP per second. This skill has no cooldown. This halo. Isn't it a little too strong? Li Shi's eyes widened when he saw the information about the skill that Bai Xiaowen had shared with him. It's already a very powerful support skill. If it's activated, it can even restrict the enemy. Bai Xiaowen thought for a while and said, this Wisdom Halo is mainly useful for magic attack type teammates. For teammates who deal physical damage, such as you, the cooldown of your skills is still there. Even if you reduce your energy consumption by half, you won't be able to make an immediate impact. On the other hand, most of our allies on the battlefield deal physical damage. After pausing for a moment, Bai Xiaowen continued, the active effect reduces the enemy's casting speed, especially with a casting time of at least 1 second. This is quite interesting. In this way, the enemies who can instantly cast large-scale damage spells will be greatly restricted, giving us time to deal with them calmly. As a Lord-tier skill, this aura did not satisfy Bai Xiaowen. He wanted a physical damage type of aura, something like Frenzy Aura or Assault Aura. However, considering that Bai Xiaowen was a prophet and had the magic wand of Mara, the goddess of wisdom, it seemed normal to have such an aura. After obtaining the Wisdom Halo skill, Bai Xiaowen had a clear grasp of the range of the aura. It was determined by the range of his mental scanning, sensing. After temporarily upgrading to the Lord tier, Bai Xiaowen's spiritual power had reached a terrifying 127 points. The range of his mental sensing had also been greatly expanded, with a radius of more than 3,000 meters. If he was in a state of extreme stillness and his mind was sublimated, this sensing range would be further extended. Bai Xiaowen quickly thought of the prophet's crown he had just obtained. Among the skills attached to this crown, there was a mind vision that could continuously extend the range of his mental scanning while in a state of meditation. Would this also extend the radius of the Wisdom Halo? As this was a very important point, Bai Xiaowen immediately tried it. He sat cross-legged on the ground and entered a state of meditation. He began to extend his mental tendrils and spread them in all directions like a dense spider web. The greenish-gold prophet crown on his head emitted a gentle green light. A warm and cool feeling surged into Bai Xiaowen's mind, easing the burden on his brain. In an instant, Bai Xiaowen's mental scanning had spanned over 10,000 meters. This feeling was very strange. It was as if the area within 10,000 meters had become a miniature map placed in front of Bai Xiaowen's eyes. As long as Bai Xiaowen thought about it, he could immediately see what was happening anywhere within the range of 10,000 meters. Moreover, within this 10,000-meter range, the existence of the powerful waves of psionic particles would also leave traces in Bai Xiaowen's mental scanning network. This was especially true when a battle broke out. These traces were very obvious. Bai Xiaowen extended his mental tendrils again. In 10 seconds, the radius of his mental scanning had increased tenfold, reaching 100 kilometers. Is there really no limit to this range extension? Bai Xiaowen tried to extend it again. In 1 minute, the radius of his mental scanning had increased threefold, reaching 300 kilometers. However, Bai Xiaowen was already feeling powerless. Within a radius of 300 kilometers, there were too many traces left behind in his mental scanning network. The speed at which his mental tendrils extended had also slowed down. Bai Xiaowen changed his mind. He retracted most of his mental tendrils and gave up on the strategy of spreading them out completely. Instead, he extended his mental tendrils in a single direction. This time, the speed was much faster. 100 kilometers, 300 kilometers, 800 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers. The maximum range of his mental tendrils extended in one direction was 1,200 kilometers. It took less than 10 minutes. Of course, this distance was not the limit. However, if he continued to extend it, the speed at which his mental tendrils extended would continue to slow down. There was no need to spend any more time trying. 1,200 kilometers, what kind of concept was that? Using Huaxia on Earth as an example, Bai Xiaowen's mental scanning could even reach the capital city while sitting in his home in Jinghai. After all, the distance between the capital city and Jinghai was less than 1,100 kilometers in a straight line. The prophet's crown is really good stuff. Although it doesn't directly help in battle, it's very useful as a support. After sighing with emotion, Bai Xiaowen then paid attention to the range of the Wisdom Halo. Unfortunately, the Wisdom Halo did not extend along with Bai Xiaowen's mental scanning range. It was fixed at a radius of 3,000 meters around him. It seemed that this was related to his initial mental scanning range. Chapter 975. Being greedy was not a good thing. Bai Xiaowen abandoned any unnecessary thoughts. The 3,000-meter radius of the wisdom halo was enough to be used in large-scale battles. After taking a deep breath, Bai Xiaowen opened his eyes. In the blink of an eye, Bai Xiaowen realized that Li Shi was staring at him. "Hello? Come back to your senses." Bai Xiaowen smiled as he stretched out his fingers and waved them in front of Li Shi's eyes. "Xiaowen, it's me." Li Shi came back to his senses and smiled embarrassedly. "When you were meditating just now, your temperament changed a lot. It's like you're a different person." Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, "Is it that exaggerated?" He stood up. When he stood up, Bai Xiaowen did feel the changes in himself. Needless to say, his physical fitness had increased. His strength, dexterity, and constitution had increased by 10 points. Bai Xiaowen's body was more balanced, and his streamlined muscles contained a considerable amount of explosive power. Bai Xiaowen's strength, dexterity, and constitution were now close to 50 points. His strength was 44 points. He was not weak against heroes who specialized in melee combat. This was because Bai Xiaowen's melee combat specialty was not low. It was at least level 7. The biggest change was his psyche. After exchanging the combination of Desert Eagle's Winter Wand and Spellbook of Ravings for Mara's Sacred Artifact of Wisdom, Bai Xiaowen's psyche had reached 87 points. With the temporary Lord strengthening, Bai Xiaowen's psyche had increased by 40 points. Bai Xiaowen's psionic power was not used, but he had the demeanor of a top expert. His eyes were also very different from before. They had become much deeper. "This is what a prophet should look like," Li Shi added with a smile. "If I was like this when I first entered the Black Tide Plain, I wouldn't even need to destroy the Vogata tribe's nest. I could just appear in front of the Alliance leaders and win their trust," Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. "Don't smile. Once you smile, that mysterious feeling will disappear," Li Shi muttered. "That's enough." Bai Xiaowen rubbed Li Shi's hair. "It's time to go back. The bones on the ground are..." Li Shi stepped over a rotten corpse. "Grave robbers." Bai Xiaowen said briefly, "Mara's wisdom is the 5th prophecy I made. It's buried in a tomb, and I can't reveal the specifics." Li Shi understood. "Do these grave robbers meet the requirements to use the sacred weapon?" "No, they didn't even see the shadow of a sacred weapon. If they want the sacred weapon to be born, they have to enter the secret code of the Guardian sect," Bai Xiaowen said. Li Shi remembered Bai Xiaowen's series of rhythmic knocks on the pillar and understood. "Then what should we do? If the grave robbers died here, it means that the tomb is sealed. We can't get out." Bai Xiaowen pointed at the top of the cracked stone pillar. There was a flickering teleportation circle. "Of course, we teleport away. Didn't you notice that when I knocked on the pillar and took out Mara's sacred weapon of wisdom, the teleportation circle at the top of the pillar was activated?" Li Shi said, "My attention was focused on you and the sacred weapon. How could I see this flickering light?" "You have to pay attention." Bai Xiaowen smiled. "Come on, let's teleport away. This teleportation circle will send us back to the Ashen Swamp, to the main entrance of the Dusty Temple." This information was also recorded on the stone tablet of the Dusty Temple. Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi touched the teleportation circle and returned to the entrance of the Dusty Temple. However, the ruins of the temple had completely sunk. During the time when Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi left, the temple had been completely buried. Fortunately, Bai Xiaowen remembered the way. He went back the way he came and soon arrived at the village of the lobstermen. Gorik, the lobsterman prophet, led a group of lobstermen to greet him. "Honorable guest, your aura has become so much stronger. Z has really received God's favor." "Yes." Bai Xiaowen nodded slightly. Li Shi saw Bai Xiaowen's calm attitude. It was a sharp contrast to Gorik's submissive attitude. She sighed inwardly. The lobsterman leader, saprophyte prophet Gorik. For ordinary awakened ones, he was a boss that they would need to spend a lot of effort to please or spend a lot of effort to surround and kill. However, in front of Bai Xiaowen, he was no different from a small lobster. Come to think of it, What Bai Xiaowen meant to an ordinary hunter was simply unimaginable. Of course, Bai Xiaowen only had such strong strength and influence in the Black Tide realm. Li Shi didn't forget this point. "Honorable guest, please give me the mistress's token." "Oh, why?" Bai Xiaowen tilted his head. "Please rest assured. I'm just following the mistress's instructions as a bridge of communication between the two of you. It's my honor." Lobsterman Prophet Gorik said respectfully. "Okay." Bai Xiaowen wasn't afraid that the old lobsterman would cause any trouble. Not to mention his own strength had greatly increased. After the +12 increase in all attributes of his summoned creatures, he was no longer the same as before. In addition, Bai Xiaowen himself was also very interested in the mistress. In fact, he had already guessed the identity of the mistress. Gorik, the lobsterman prophet, held the scale devoutly and knelt on the ground. Wormwood, snake bile, and bone marrow squeezed out from the drowned bones. Drops of unknown liquid dripped onto the scale as Gorik muttered a mysterious incantation. Suddenly, a black smoke rippled out from the scale and rose in spirals. Within the black smoke, a slender and graceful female serpentine figure with many arms appeared. "We meet again. Do you know how I should address you now, Your Excellency the Great Prophet?" The female serpentine slightly tilted her head. There was a hint of ridicule in her snake eyes. "As expected, it's you, Lady Snake Mother Jaglila." Bai Xiaowen nodded slightly. "Judging from Your Excellency the Great Prophet's tone, you seem to have already guessed my identity." "That's right. It's indeed difficult for me to hide some secrets in front of the Great Prophet, especially since you've obtained the inheritance." Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes and said, "Lady Jaglila, let's make a long story short and get straight to the point. You know the secret hidden in the Ashen Swamp and are certain that I came here for the inheritance. Since that's the case, you didn't stop me and even let your clansmen, the lobstermen, help me. This is enough to explain your position. Your Excellency the Great Prophet's mind is indeed very sharp. However, I have to correct something." The Snake Mother Jaglila smiled charmingly. "Actually, before today, my position wasn't clear. Even I didn't know which side to stand on. It was only when you returned from the Sky Holy Church Temple that I made a decision. It was as if you had become a different person and your strength had greatly increased." Chapter 976. Li Shi muttered in the team channel, "This Snake Mother is too realistic." Bai Xiaowen, however, was not fooled by Snake Mother Kaglila's smile. He shook his head and said, "My increase in strength made you make up your mind? Forgive me for being blunt, but this is not a reason for you to change your stance. Before this, 4 of the 7 sacred artifacts had already appeared, and 3 of them already had compatible owners. Those 3 people's strength had also increased dramatically. Why didn't you change your stance then? Your Excellency Prophet, if I have to give a reason, it's your special identity." Snake Mother Kaglila smiled and said, "Originally, I didn't care about your identity as a prophet because you didn't get the Guardian Sex legacy. But now, it's different. You've gotten the legacy, and the Great Lord's chances of winning have decreased a lot. On the surface, the Great Lord still has the advantage. The deep-sea snake people can come and go as they please. As the defending side, the allied forces are unable to protect the vast sea border." Bai Xiaowen said calmly, "Even if the Guardian and Abyss camps have equal chances of winning, as one of the 3 overlords of the Abyss camp, you have a respected status. What reason do you have to betray us?" There had to be a sufficient reason to betray one's own camp. The most common reasons for betrayal were benefits or status. For example, if one were to jump ship to a rival company, the other party would definitely offer a higher salary/position than what one was currently offered. Among the snake people, Kaglila was probably second only to one and above everyone else. It was impossible for her to get a higher status by joining the Guardian camp. Snake Mother Kaglila sighed and said, "All right, then I'll tell Your Excellency Prophet the reason why I changed my stance. The deep-sea snake people that Your Excellency Prophet just mentioned are actually not accurate. my tribe and I don't belong to the deep sea. We're amphibious snake people and don't like the deep and dark seabed. To us, moist quagmires and swamps full of vines are our true home. I believe Your Excellency Prophet has already noticed this. I'm very different from the ordinary female snake people you've seen before." At this point, Snake Mother Kaglila raised her 8 arms and said, "That's right. We quagmires have many arms. This is the normal form of snake people. Those so-called deep-sea snake people only have 2 arms. They are just a mutated race." Bai Xiaowen's heart skipped a beat. Shi Yan remembered the space of the Dead Soul Lake. He had seen the Naga inside the isolation formation, especially the female Naga. They seemed to have many arms. When Bai Xiaowen first entered the Black Tide Bitwall and saw the deep-sea Nagas with only 2 arms, he was puzzled. They seemed to be different from the mud Nagas. However, he did not delve into this point at the time. From the looks of it, the mud snake people led by Snake Mother Kaglila should be the native tribe of the Black Tide Plain. As for the deep-sea snake people transformed from the consciousness of the Great Lord, they belong to the artificial tribe. "Do you discriminate against Nagas?" Bai Xiaowen asked. Jaglila shrugged. "It's not discrimination. However, as the number of altars created by the Great Lord's subordinates increases, the number of transformed Nagas has gradually surpassed the number of native Nagas. This makes me very worried." Bai Xiaowen quickly understood. Originally, they were aliens. But when their numbers become too large, you will become an anomaly. "Your Excellency Prophet is really smart," Jaglila said with a smile. "However, there's another reason that prompted me to betray the Great Lord." "Tell me." "As the true priestess of Amitabha, I have a feeling that the Great Lord who has been resurrected now is not our ancestor, Lord Amitabha. I don't know where that guy came from, but he has occupied the remains of Lord Amitabha." "This is a kind of blasphemy," Jaglila said seriously. Bai Xiaowen nodded slightly. "As expected, Your Excellency Prophet also knows some inside information. I wonder if you can tell me so that I can confirm my guess?" Jaglila smiled charmingly. Bai Xiaowen nodded. "I can tell you that the consciousness that is currently occupying the remains of Amitabha does not belong to the Black Tide Bitwall." "Phew. It seems that my guess is not wrong." Jaglila breathed a sigh of relief. "Then, this is the reason why I betrayed the Great Lord. Since you have long realized that the Great Lord is not Amitabha himself, why did you still stay under him?" Li Shi looked at Jaglila's revealing outfit and seductive smile. He felt uncomfortable and found fault with her. Snake Mother Galilala smiled and said, "For survival." Bai Xiaowen nodded. He had already understood the process of Jaglila's change in mentality. After the consciousness of the alien occupied Amitabha's remains, Jaglila sensed that something was wrong. However, because the alien was too powerful and mysterious, the Abyss faction had an absolute advantage. In order to protect her race and her own safety, Jaglila chose to endure and play dumb. Even if she joined forces with the Guardian faction, they could not do anything to the Great Lord. It was not until Bai Xiaowen returned to the Black Tide Bitwall, killed Vazadas, joined forces with the mainland countries, and obtained the inheritance of the ancient Guardian faction. A series of brilliant battle results made Jaglila realize that there was an opportunity. Therefore, she actively sought refuge with Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen also secretly kept an eye on her. Jaglila was the kind of person who only cared about victory. She would follow whoever was stronger. She would never go against the trend. If the Abyss faction had an advantage, she would inevitably turn back. Therefore, he could not fully trust her. Of course, keeping an eye on her did not mean that they would not cooperate. Now, both sides had the foundation to cooperate. "What can you do for the Alliance Army?" Bai Xiaowen asked. "I know the Great Lord's plan of action. His next main target is the ley line pillar in the Great Mine of Moat. I can help you create an opportunity to ambush the Great Lord. Destroy his evil consciousness," Jaglila said. That's a good idea. However, it's not easy to find such an opportunity, Bai Xiaowen said. That's why we need to keep in touch at all times. For safety reasons, I'll leave the scale token with you. I'll get Gorik to tell you how to perform the communication ritual and contact me. Jaglila was very cautious. If the mysterious Great Lord discovered her betrayal, what awaited the primordial Nagas would be a great purge. Both sides agreed on some code words, signals, and so on. Then, the meeting ended. Snake Mother Galilala's shadow slowly dissipated in the black smoke. Bai Xiaowen, on the other hand, learned the communication ritual from Seer Gorik and obtained a batch of spellcasting materials. After that, Bai Xiaowen returned to the capital of Camero first. Then, he went to the Kingdom of Dwarves. That had become the new battlefield. Chapter 977. In the messy mine, gravel could be seen everywhere on the ground. Piles of stones formed irregular gravel hills. There were more than a dozen mines like this in the moat mine of the Dwarf Kingdom. It used to be the largest mining base in the Dwarf Kingdom, but now the mining work had been suspended. Because this large mine had become the front-line battlefield between the Alliance army and the Snake people. In the mine, 3 dwarves were stumbling and running. Fortunately, their center of gravity was relatively low, so it was not easy to fall. Behind them, across a few gravel hills, they could vaguely hear shouts. "Don't let them run away. Master Shuren's order, we must catch them alive." Hearing these shouts, the 3 dwarves' short legs moved even faster. Unfortunately, they still could not outrun the other party. Originally, they were more familiar with the terrain of the mine and could deal with the other party, but the Snake people had an absolute advantage in numbers. Moreover, the Snake people obviously had a magic profession that specialized in spirit. Their spirit scanning had been focused on the 3 dwarves, so they could not escape. As the Snake people circled around from all sides, the encirclement had quickly formed. The 3 dwarves soon found that the Snake people's pursuers appeared in front and behind them. They had no way to escape. "Lucky, it seems that the god of forging took a nap today," a dwarf said while panting. "We can't run away, so we have to fight with these long-tailed monsters here." The dwarf named Lucky looked relatively young. His beard was just beginning to grow, and it was much shorter than the other 2 dwarves. His face was a little pale, and he clenched the short axe in his hand as if to encourage himself and his companions. He murmured, "Yes, we are the warriors of the Hawkeye tribe. Hawkeye is not afraid of any enemy." Hiss. One in front and one behind, a leader of the Snake people slithered out. The leader of the Snake people in front was thin and long, holding a staff in his hand. He spat out his snake tongue and showed an ugly smile. "Hey, you 3 can't run away, and you can't be our opponent. It's better to put down your weapons and surrender. Maybe you can get a chance to become one of us. Bah, even if I, Lucky Hawkeye, die here, I won't be the same as you ugly long-tailed monsters." The leader of the Snake people in the back was stout and snorted. "Don't talk nonsense with them, go. If we can't capture them alive, we'll just kill them. We can't let them return to the Alliance Command Center." More than a dozen Nagas and 20 to 30 slave warriors picked up their weapons and rushed forward. The 3 dwarves stood back to back with despair in their eyes. They were only elites. Not to mention the fact that the other party had more people, they couldn't even deal with the 2 Naga leaders. There was no chance of winning this chase. However, before the 2 sides clashed, a huge black shadow suddenly descended from the sky. Boom! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground could be heard. Following which, both sides saw a large and fat corpse monster. Its robe and crown shone with a green light, and it held a ferocious-looking fixed scepter in its hand. Both sides hesitated for a second. This fat zombie. Which side was it on? Soon, the zombie monster used its actions to give the answer. It swung its arms and hit a Naga elite warrior with a home run, causing a few sharp snake fangs to fly out. "It's the enemy! Watch out for a summoner hiding at the side, cross!" The stout Naga leader roared. The skinny Naga leader Cross agreed. I'll pull him out right away. He activated his spiritual scan and quickly scanned the battlefield. However, Cross' expression changed. No matter how carefully he searched, he couldn't find any trace of that summoner. He could only connect his spiritual feelers to the huge zombie monster and try to follow the other party's spiritual connection to find the master of the zombie monster. Doing so was very dangerous. It was equivalent to a direct spiritual contest. If he won, he could certainly discover the other party's location, but if his spiritual strength was inferior to his opponent's, boom. Cross' vision turned black. His spiritual strength feeler was like a small boat reaching into the deep ocean. He hurriedly retracted it, but that vast spiritual strength ocean was furious and instantly overturned the boat, completely annihilating it. 2 lines of blood flowed out of Cross' small nostrils. Not only did he lose nearly half of his spiritual strength, but he also suffered from spiritual backlash. Who is it? Seeing Cross suffer, the stout Naga leader shouted in anger. However, the surroundings of the mine were quiet and there was no response. He's not here yet. Cross finally recovered from the dizziness and hurriedly shouted, the other party is at least 2 kilometers away from us. He's remotely controlling this zombie monster to fight with us. At this point, Cross showed an incredulous expression. He couldn't believe it himself. There was a distance limit to a summoner controlling a summoned creature to fight. Not only was it linked to spiritual strength, but it was also related to one's talent. To be able to summon a zombie monster across a distance of 2 kilometers and to be able to control it to fight. Heavens, what kind of summoner was this? Kill this zombie monster as well. Let's get this over with quickly. The stout Naga leader waved his giant spear and personally went into battle. The other elite Nagas and slave warriors swarmed forward. With a buzz, a large cloud of purplish-black poisonous fog emerged from the zombie monster's body. It was like a purple swamp, causing all the nearby Nagas to be slowed down and poisoned. Close combat attacks slashed the zombie monster's body, but it didn't hurt at all. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. White light flashed, and a few more summoned creatures appeared. There were skeleton warriors wielding large swords, soul-catcher banshees wielding spears and in the shape of valkyries, as well as uniformed skeleton shield warriors. At the front of this undead army, there was a knight emitting black fog all over, as if he had walked out of hell. The skeleton warhorse under him and the spear in his hand were all burning with the demonic fire of hell. Every step the warhorse took left charred marks on the ground. Death Knight. The powerful fluctuation of psionic particles made the Nagas quickly realize that the Death Knight in front of them was a powerful leader. Hiss, without any nonsense, the Death Knight held his spear horizontally and directly launched a charge. The undead creatures behind him also charged forward with silent cries. The powerful impact brought with it terrifying kinetic energy. The first elite Naga on the charging path had its heart pierced by the spear and was lifted up. The Death Knight abruptly swung his lance and drew a bloody arc in the air. The elite Naga that had been insta-killed was directly thrown into the crowd. The powerful force contained in the lance caused a bunch of slave warriors to roll on the ground. I'll deal with him. The muscular leader of the Nagas slithered forward. However, what followed was a sense of fear surging in his heart. The Nagas leader's movements suddenly stiffened. Not only him, but the surrounding Nagas and slave warriors also stiffened. Not far away, 2 giant wolves were running in front and back, each carrying a person. Soon, they reached the battlefield. We finally made it. Li Shi, who was sitting on the back of Mother Wolf, cheered. He nimbly jumped off the wolf's back and crashed into the crowd like a whirlwind. The one sitting on the Wrath Claw in front was Bai Xiaowen. He sized up the situation on the battlefield and said with a smile, looks like the Death Knight's actual combat performance is not bad. The 3,000 soul essence spent was worth it. Chapter 978. Time turned to a diagonal. From the Camelot Kingdom, Bai Xiaowen took the teleportation circle and arrived at the Alliance Command Center of the Moat Mine. In the command center, Bai Xiaowen learned that a group of dwarf scouts had lost contact on their way back and their current whereabouts were unknown. Bai Xiaowen activated his mental scan and quickly extended it to find the location of the scout apricot. Then, Bai Xiaowen heard that the leader of this group of dwarf apricots was called Geely Hawkeye and was an important member of the Hawkeye tribe, one of the 3 major tribes of the dwarf kingdom. He immediately volunteered to go to the battlefield to support this apricot. With his prestige, it was easy for him to accept this support mission. On the way, Bai Xiaowen also upgraded the Black Soul Stone. It was now level 7 with a growth rate of 39010000. The yang of the 7th enhancement scroll was as follows: Enhancement Yang 1, increased the number of skeleton warriors, skeleton sword and shield warriors, by 4 and all attributes by 6. Requires 1500 soul essence. Enhancement Yang 2, increased the number of terror knights by 2 and all attributes by 6. Requires 1500 soul essence. Enhancement Yang 3, increased the number of cataclysmic spider demons by 2 and all attributes by 6. Requires 1500 soul essence. Enhancement Yang 4, increase the total attributes of your skeleton giant by 10 and obtain the special skill, Skeleton Split. Requires 1500 soul essence. Enhancement Yang 5, add a new bone race summon creature, Death Knight. Death Knight has the boss template and requires 3000 soul essence. Enhancement Yang 6, add a new blood race summon creature, Vampire Lord. Vampire Lord has the boss template and requires 3000 soul essence. Enhancement Yang 7, add a new bone race summon creature, Lich. Lich has the boss template and requires 3000 soul essence. Just as Bai Xiaowen had expected, a commander tier summon creature had finally appeared on the 7th floor of the enhancement scroll. Of course, a boss tier summon creature was very expensive. It required 3000 soul essence to light it up, which was 3 times more than the soul-sucking Banshee. This new Death Knight was the first yang that Bai Xiaowen had lit up in the 7th level of the enhancement scroll. He had his considerations when he made this decision. Currently, the team lacked a high-strength warrior-type summon. Whether it was Bai Xiaowen's personal summons or the entire White Phoenix team, it was the same. In comparison, agility-type vampire lords and magic-type liches weren't that important. Adding a commander-ranked Death Knight was necessary, but the cost of 3000 soul essence was a bit of a pain. Death Knight Leader, Level 8, Race, Undead Bone Race Attributes, Strength 76, Agility 38, Constitution 52, Intelligence 23, including bonus from Shaman and Spirit, Skill 1, Legion Charge, omitted, Skill 2, Blood Strike, omitted, Skill 3, Blasphemy, omitted, Skill 4, Withering Coil, omitted. There were 4 combat skills. The Legion Charge gave 7 points of super armor. When the cavalry charged together with the Legion Charge, they would also gain super armor and double the damage of the charge. Blood Strike could heal the cavalry while dealing damage. Desecration was a large-scale AoE spell. Withering Entanglement could deal damage to living beings while also healing undead units. It could be said that the Legion Charge had both offensive and defensive capabilities. None of the 4 skills were useless skills. In terms of attributes, the Death Knight's main attribute was strength and physique. It had both explosive output and survivability. Although it was slightly weaker in agility, as a cavalry, its movement speed was fast, so it was not afraid of being kite. Therefore, the Death Knight was expensive. Just from killing an elite Naga in one hit and the subsequent terrifying power it displayed, it was already worth the price. Compared to the Butcher, the Death Knight had more potential to become the leader of Bai Xiaowen's undead army. Of course, it was necessary to mention that the Death Knight's attributes were under the effect of Bai Xiaowen's 127 points of spirit. Without the additional 40 points of spirit given by Mara's gift, the Death Knight's attributes would have decreased by 4 points. Compared to the Death Knight Kale he encountered in the mausoleum of the Northern Monastery in the Aran Plain world, Bai Xiaowen's summon creature, the Death Knight, had weaker attributes. After all, the Kale in the mausoleum was already an idle leader. What really gave Bai Xiaowen a headache was the growth rate of the next stage, which had increased from 5,000 to 10,000 points. It was unknown how long it would take for him to unlock the 8th level of the enhancement scroll. Therefore, Bai Xiaowen planned on spending his remaining 1320 points of soul essence to light up the remaining yang. Currently, there were a few yangs that he was considering. For example, the 7th level of the number and quality enhancement of the Skeleton Saber Shield Bearer, the 5th level of the number and quality enhancement of the Elite Terror Knight, and the 7th level of the number and quality enhancement of the Terror Knight, etc. The last 2 items had the highest priority. If they were all lit up, they would be able to obtain 3 Elite Terror Knights. The most important thing was that they would be covered by the Death Knight's Legion Charge effect, which would make 1 + 1 greater than 2. However, to light up these 2 options, he needed nearly 2,000 points of soul essence. Bai Xiaowen still had some saved up. He could make a decision when he encountered actual combat situations. Back to Chengdu, after Bai Xiaowen charged into the battle, his Lord-level psionic power dissipated, immediately shocking all the ministers. The 3 dwarves were still fine. As elites, they could not tell the difference between an idol leader and a Lord-level psionic. They only felt that Bai Xiaowen's aura was different from Chengdu's. However, the 2 Naga leaders' expressions changed at the same time. He's an expert on the same level as Lord Serene. E = E = E = E = E = E = E. They were thinking of escaping, but reality was cruel. Including the 2 leaders, all the Naga were controlled by the deterrence effect. They were either stunned or stunned. They could not move at all. With Bai Xiaowen's present 127 points of spiritual power, any enemy with a spiritual power of 42 or below would be stunned. Furthermore, he had temporarily upgraded to a Lord-level psionic force field. Deterrence's special effect, Psionic Force Field, was already effective against enemies whose Lord-level psionic force field was not higher than Bai Xiaowen's. With the Lord-level psionic force field, the special effect became a godly skill. Ignoring the 3 dwarves' stupefaction, Li Shui and his summoned creatures had entered a frenzied killing mode. As Bai Xiaowen maintained his psionic force field, he used Mara's Wand of Wisdom to cast. The Light of Wisdom, which originally took 1 second to cast, was reduced to 5 seconds under the effects of Wisdom Halo. If not for the 15-second cooldown, Bai Xiaowen's channeling speed would have exceeded Li Shui's normal attack speed. When the Light of Wisdom landed on a Naga or a slave warrior, it would turn into a fire effect. This was because these monsters' weakness was their resistance to fire. Needless to say, Bai Xiaowen had a terrifying 130 points of spiritual power. Furthermore, the true damage of the Blood Essence Stone could make anyone pregnant. Mobile Reading Access, M. Chapter 979. The battle did not last too long. The Snake Mage leader, Kratz, had wanted to cast a spell to salvage the situation, but as Bai Xiaowen activated the active effect of the Wisdom Aura, his casting time was doubled, and his instantaneous spell was forcibly extended to 1 second, which wasted more than half of his spell. In the end, Kratz's chest was pierced by the Death Knight's lance, taking away the last of his life points. Li Shi took advantage of the time when the 3 dwarves were talking to Bai Xiaowen to pick up the treasure chest. Unfortunately, the treasure chests dropped by the 2 level 8 bosses were only derated. Thank you for your rescue. The 3 dwarves hesitantly walked towards Bai Xiaowen. After all, Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures were basically undead, like a necromancer profession. The dwarves had always kept a respectful distance from such a strong person. Hello, which one of you is Mr. Jilly Hawkeye? Bai Xiaowen looked at the 3 of them. He was a little blind when it came to dwarves. I am. Standing in the middle, the short-bearded dwarf raised his hand and asked tentatively, You wouldn't be the prophet of Camelor, right? I don't just belong to Camelor. Bai Xiaowen showed a kind smile. Well, the rescue mission has been completed. Let's go back to the headquarters and talk in detail. You really are the prophet. Oh my God, I've only heard rumors about the prophet. Today, I finally see the real person. No wonder you were one of the 4 strong people who once fought against the Great Lord. You're really strong." The 3 dwarves all smiled. Although necromancers were loathsome, the necromancers on his side were still a reliable force that made him feel at ease. On the way back to the headquarters, Bai Xiaowen also understood the upper political structure of the dwarf kingdom through the conversation with the 3 dwarves. The dwarf kingdom was mainly composed of 3 major tribes: Greybeard, Hawkeye, and Copperhammer. The leaders of these 3 tribes formed the 3-tribe parliament to deal with the important affairs of the kingdom through voting. Bai Xiaowen had seen an important member of the Greybeard tribe, Ponga Greybeard, who was the representative of the dwarf iron-armored fleet in the Bonus Sea. The 2 had interacted before and their relationship was not bad. Their favorability was at the level of friends. Geely Hawkeye was the grandson of the Hawkeye tribe. Naturally, he was an important figure. It was reasonable to say that such an important member would not carry out such a dangerous mission like frontline reconnaissance, but Little Lucky took the initiative to request, and the Hawkeye tribe leader also wanted to set an example, so this grandson was sent out. Little Lucky's luck was mixed. His bad luck was that he had coincidentally bumped into the Naga leader, who was one of the rare psychic-type Nagas. As a result, his whereabouts had been exposed and he had been discovered. His good luck was that Bai Xiaowen had coincidentally arrived at the battlefield and used his limitless psychic scan to find his location and rescue him in time. Perhaps it was because he had saved his life, but after chatting for a short while, Lucky's favorability rose all the way to friend level. Bai Xiaowen was a little surprised by the speed of the increase in favorability. He clearly did not recite a poem. But thinking about it carefully, the rate of increase of favorability seems to be related to the individual strength of the awakened. Bai Xiaowen's current Lord-level template was already one of the top powerhouses in the Black Tide realm. In the Sword Song realm, even if he was not one of the 4 invincibles, he would still be a leader of a large sect. For such a big shot to be so concerned about a small elite, it was only natural that his favorable impression of him would soar. In addition, there was also the factor of charm. If Bai Xiaowen's necromancer status did not reduce his points, perhaps his favorability with Little Lucky would have risen all the way to friend level. By extension, it was easier for powerful awakened to get closer to important figures in the spiritual realm, and the chances of triggering important side quests would undoubtedly be greater. Alliance Command. Thank God. You brought Little Lucky back safely. Otherwise, I really don't know how to explain it to old Hawkeye. Ponga Greybeard, who was covered in refined steel armor and looked like a short can, shouted loudly. Bai Xiaowen smiled and did not say anything. Well, since the scouting team has returned safely, we should discuss the battle plan. Ahan rubbed his forehead with a headache. Little Lucky's encounter is not an isolated case. The Nagas suddenly increased their patrols today and sent many powerhouses who are good at scouting to join the patrol team. At present, we know very little about the Nagas' movements in the moat mine area. Ponga Greybeard, according to the confession of that Naga captive Herefensen, we have already set up a heavy defense at the Earth Vein corridor and its entrance. The Nagas will eventually attack this place. We can wait for them to exhaust themselves and give them a head-on blow. Ahan shook his head. Blindly defending is not the best plan. If the Continental Alliance cannot find the main force of the Nagas and take the initiative to attack, they will be restrained everywhere. You must know that the moat mine is not the only Earth Vein corridor that needs to be defended in the Black Tide continent. As far as we know, there is one in the Beastman Kingdom's Galgulch Plateau, and there will definitely be others in other places. If the Nagas see that they cannot take this place for a long time and run to other places to cause trouble, it will be bad. Ponga Greybeard muttered and did not say anything else. From the perspective of the Dwarf Kingdom's representative, he naturally hoped that the Continental Alliance would remain stationed in the moat mine. Bai Xiaowen said with a smile, "Don't worry, leave the scouting work to me. No matter where the Nagas hide, I will be able to find them." Everyone in the room was enlightened when they heard this. Previously, when they were searching for Little Lucky's traces, Bai Xiaowen had already displayed his miraculous mental scanning ability. He really knew everything in the world without leaving his room. With such a pair of heaven's eyes, there was indeed no need to send a scouting team to take the risk. I already have a very good entry point to deal with the Nagas, but I still need to wait for the right time to make use of it, Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. In addition, I have also found a way to expel the seawater and restore the land in the temple in the Ashen Swamp. Really? Everyone in the room was surprised and delighted. Bai Xiaowen quickly received a series of notifications. His reputation in the Guardian camp had risen to the level of worship. It was not because of Bai Xiaowen's words that his reputation rose, but because Bai Xiaowen had completed the third stage of the main mission, the Dusty Temple, which was an inevitable reputation reward after deciphering the inscriptions on the tablet. Of course it's true. But it is not easy to restore the land. We still have to find a way to turn our attention to the Great Lord. Ahan, how is the holy artifact? Ahan said, according to your revised prophecy, we have found Apollo's whisper. Currently, no one can unleash the power of this light longbow, so it has no owner for the time being. In addition, the Orc Kingdom has opened Saratha's protection to the public, and someone has obtained its recognition. Who is it? Bai Xiaowen's spirits were lifted. This was good news. Harold, the Knight Commander of Altoria whom you have met before, Ahan said with a smile. Chapter 980. In that case, all 7 holy artifacts have appeared, Bai Xiaowen said. No, the axe of the 6th prophecy hasn't been found, Ahan said. You and Her Majesty Queen Camelot went to the prophecy land to take a look. Since you didn't find it, it means that someone has already taken it. Bai Xiaowen touched his chin and said, I suggest that we make an announcement on the continent to clearly state the importance of the axe. If necessary, I will also ask for help from the prophecy tablet to find its location. Ahan was relieved. It was good to have a reliable quack on their side. That's enough business. Mr. Panga, let's talk about private matters. Bai Xiaowen looked at Tin Can. As a dwarf, Panga Greybeard was very straightforward. He guessed what Bai Xiaowen wanted to say and didn't beat around the bush. He said directly, Lord Prophet, are you talking about the ancient rune armor? I have already reported this matter to the tribe leader. But unfortunately, when Leader Morado brought this matter to the 3 tribes for discussion, it didn't pass. Morado Greybeard was the tribe leader of the Greybeard tribe and one of the 3 leaders of the dwarves. At this point, Panga Greybeard hesitated and explained, Lord Prophet, we are very sorry, but for the Dwarf Kingdom, the ancient rune armor is a very important research material. Generations of dwarven craftsmen have drawn a lot of inspiration from it and created a lot of powerful and precious equipment. Forging is the life of the dwarves. After a pause, Panga Greybeard said, Lord Prophet, in order to express our apology, the Dwarf Kingdom can give you a piece of excellent equipment. You can choose any part you want. Bai Xiaowen already understood Panga Greybeard's meaning. Although the Allied army was helping the dwarves and Bai Xiaowen was an important figure in the Allied army, the ancient rune armor was also important to the dwarves. In addition, Harifenson's testimony also included the location of the Earth Vein Corridor in the Dwarf Kingdom. They did not need Bai Xiaowen, the prophet, to help them find the entrance. Otherwise, Bai Xiaowen could have imitated the Orc Kingdom and made a deal with them. Although Harifenson was captured by Bai Xiaowen, and the Dwarf Kingdom would express their gratitude to Bai Xiaowen, the dwarves would not agree to pay the high price of the ancient rune armor. It was very real, but this was reality. Bai Xiaowen said, Can I meet Chief Morado? Of course. Old Pang Jia understood that Bai Xiaowen hadn't given up yet, but he wouldn't stop him. What came next would be a negotiation between the leaders, and it wouldn't be a problem for him to pass on the message. The Dwarf Kingdom attached great importance to the defense of the Great Mine of Moat. 2 of the 3 patriarchs were stationed at strategic locations in the Great Mine of Moat. Morado Greybeard and Caldel Hawkeye were the 2 patriarchs. Sherry, can you bring me to meet your grandfather, Chief Caldel? Bai Xiaowen looked at the dwarf Gil Hawkeye. Of course. Bai Xiaowen first went to visit Caldel Hawkeye. Before they met, he even recited a few lines of poetry. Caldel welcomed Bai Xiaowen's visit. He was especially grateful that Bai Xiaowen had saved his grandson's life. Chief Caldel's impression of him was naturally at the level of acquaintance. After the conversation, it rose to the level of friend. "Lord Prophet, what did you talk to my grandfather about?" Gil Hawkeye said in a small voice. "I've never seen my grandfather so warm to an outsider. Even the Elven Queen didn't let him see you off personally." Bai Xiaowen smiled and shook his head. Then, while the leaf shade peony painting was still in effect, he and old Pang Jia Greybeard hurried to the Greybeard tribe's military camp to meet Chief Morado Greybeard. Morado Greybeard was inspecting the work of the military equipment maintenance soldiers in the logistics camp. Ding ding dang dang. Bai Xiaowen and Gil followed old Pang Jia Greybeard to the military equipment camp. A series of smithing sounds entered their ears first. Next to the military camp, there was an open-air blacksmith shop. The furnace that was emitting black smoke, the black anvil, and the casting table that was piled up with spare parts were all telling of how busy the blacksmith camp was. "Where is Chief Morado?" Li Shi looked around and saw old Pang Jia at the side. Old Pang Jia Greybeard led the two of them to a casting table not far away. He pointed at a short, strong old man with bare arms and wearing a blacksmith's apron in front of the table. "That's the chief." Bai Xiaowen looked at Morado's sweaty back and sighed inwardly. Morado's inspection wasn't just for show. He was truly immersed in the work. He worked with the many dwarven blacksmiths to repair the damaged military equipment and cast new ones. Bai Xiaowen and the other two didn't disturb him. They only came over when Morado Greybeard finished quenching a few newly repaired iron swords and wiped his sweat. Old Pang Jia Greybeard gave a brief introduction. Morado Greybeard had seen Bai Xiaowen's magic communication image long ago. He naturally recognized the famous prophet of the Dark Tide continent at a glance. "Lord Prophet, you have broken through?" Morado's eyes showed a trace of surprise. "Your breath is completely different from before." Bai Xiaowen smiled. Old Pang Jia Greybeard at the side praised him. "Yes, Chief. Lord Prophet went to a place called the Ashen Swamp this time and obtained the inheritance of the ancient Guardian sect. Not only did his strength break through to the top level like Commander Ahan, but more importantly, he found a way to repair the damaged land." Morado's face was obviously much more solemn. "It is the great fortune of the Guardian Alliance to have a prophet like you to guide us." Bai Xiaowen said, "Chief, this is my mission and also my honor. I came to visit you this time because I have a request." "Well, I think I already know what Lord Prophet wants." Morado hesitated. "This is not something I can decide on my own. What I need is your attitude," Bai Xiaowen said. "Well, Lord Prophet knows the importance of the ancient rune armor to our country. If I give it to you for free, many forgers in the Dwarf Kingdom will be dissatisfied. So I am inclined to exchange it. Chief, please explain what price I need to pay to exchange for the ancient rune armor." Bai Xiaowen heard that Morado's tone had changed, but his expression didn't change. This was normal. Now Bai Xiaowen was visiting in person as a lord and a prophet. He also had a way to repair the continent in his hand. Even the stubborn dwarves couldn't be easily dismissed. "I heard that Lord Prophet has captured the flagship of the Lord of the Deep Sea, Wazadas." Morado smiled. "The flagship is equipped with magic crystal cannons, right? As long as you give me a magic crystal cannon as the price, I am confident that I can help you persuade the other two old fogies." Chapter 981. This was a generous offer. For the Ghost flagship, dismantling a magic crystal cannon was not painful at all. It was almost equivalent to no loss, but it could help Bai Xiaowen complete the final part of this important awakening skill quest. Li Shi looked at Bai Xiaowen with an inquiring look. Bai Xiaowen was just about to speak when a message came from the spiritual realm's law. "Warning, in your contact with the spiritual realm's people, it involves a message, magic crystal cannon. Warning, if you agree to the request of the spiritual realms people, it will lead to the failure of the S-Class Special Hero Side Mission, Scavenger. A warning is unnecessary. Bai Xiaowen muttered in his heart. He did not intend to open up the magic crystal cannons and exchange any benefits with the natives of the Black Tide Plain. Patriarch Morato, due to some unspeakable reasons, I can't give the magic crystal cannons to any human kingdom. Bai Xiaowen said, even with my relationship with the Camelot Kingdom, I have not given any magic crystal cannons to Camelot. You can ask Her Majesty Queen Camelot about this. Morato frowned. There is no need to ask for confirmation. I believe the prophet will not lie. Then what is the reason? I'm sorry, the reason is not clear. Bai Xiaowen said. Thanks to his identity as a prophet, Morato did not doubt Bai Xiaowen's words. Who knew what taboos a charlatan had? Then, about the ancient rune armor, Bai Xiaowen interrupted Patriarch Morato's words. Please wait a moment. Although I can't take out the magic crystal cannons, I have another thing. I believe the dwarf masters will be very interested. With that, Bai Xiaowen took out a key-shaped item that emitted a faint white light. It was the magic crystal cannon assembly, incomplete. This A-class silver item had not been used since he got it at the exchange. This is... Morato reached out to take the meat item. Bai Xiaowen retracted his hand. Wait a minute, please let me explain. This item is not a chi shu, but a summoning medium. After using it, it will summon a magic-powered soldier. You can think of it as a piloted war puppet. However, this war golem will self-destruct after 25 minutes, so don't summon it. Oh, I can feel that this medium is connected to a dimensional space. The magic patterns on it are so precise that it's intoxicating. Patriarch Morato's heart was itching. He could not wait to use this key to see the true appearance of the Demon Heart Soldier in advance. The magic-powered soldier is powered by a crystal core, and it is also equipped with a triple-mounted magic cannon. This alone is not inferior to a magic crystal cannon, Bai Xiaowen continued to promote. It is also equipped with a magic-powered Gatling gun and an intelligent combat system. It is enough for the Dwarven Masters to study for a lifetime. The first problem is the self-destruct program. I am afraid it will be difficult to stop it. Although Patriarch Morato did not understand what a Gatling gun meant, he felt that it was very powerful. He slapped his thigh. You don't have to worry about the self-destruct program. That's it. Sir H. Knowledge, you have my vote. Do you want me to help you find those two old guys, Copperhammer and Hawkeye? Thank you, but no need, Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. Before I came, I had already met with Patriarch Caldel and Hawkeye. I am very happy that we have reached a consensus through the Demon Heart Soldier. Oh. No wonder I heard that you found his lost grandson. Well, that's good. I will immediately propose a meeting between the three races. As long as you communicate with Copperhammer, who is in charge of the capital, you will be able to clarify this matter. Don't worry, Lord Prophet. Patriarch Morato watched as Bai Xiaowen put away the key. He enthusiastically sent Bai Xiaowen out of the foundry camp and promised that he would send the ancient rune armor over. Since the matter was settled, Bai Xiaowen was no longer worried about the awakening skill. Xiaowen, do you really think that the Dwarven Masters can develop the technology for the Demon Heart Soldier? Li Shi asked. Bai Xiaowen said slowly, although it's not very optimistic, I can't rule out the possibility that the dwarves have methods that I don't know about. The main thing is that the rules of the spiritual realm cannot interfere with the natives, so there are endless possibilities. No matter what, it's good that you have the materials needed for your awakening skill, Li Shi said. Well, that's true, but I still hope that the dwarves can gain something. Because I need to ask the dwarves to make some equipment. Our storage space has accumulated a lot of special materials. It's always good to have a good relationship with the dwarves. After a pause, Bai Xiaowen said, before the ancient rune armor is sent over, let's go meet up with Sister Qiao and the others. I haven't seen them in so many days. I wonder how they are doing. Qiao Rui and Cecilia were in the southern waters of the Dwarf Kingdom. They were piloting the huge ghost ship, the Ikiha, and leading the Freikorps to fight against the Nagas. Their current location was unknown. Interestingly, when Bai Xiaowen expanded the range of his mental scan infinitely to find the location of Qiao Rui and the others, he found Han Su first. He was in a dwarven camp about 10 kilometers away from the command center. Bai Xiaowen was a little puzzled, but Han Su did not have a magic communication scroll on him. This thing was still very precious. He could not call to ask about the situation, so he had to go in person. 10 kilometers was only a few minutes for the two giant wolves. Bai Xiaowen saw Han Su in the crowd at first glance. Standing in the middle of a group of dwarves, Han Su, who was nearly 2 meters tall, stood out like an ostrich standing in a flock of chickens. "Captain." Han Su put down the hammer in his hand. Smack! A sturdy dwarf blacksmith behind Han Su jumped up and slapped Han Su hard on the back of his head. A real blacksmith can't put down the hammer in his hand when he's forging equipment, even if it's the Emperor's order. Han Su shrank his neck, touched the back of his head, smiled embarrassedly, and then picked up the hammer again. With just one deep breath, he once again entered the same state as before. He was highly focused and had no distractions in his mind. Well, it seems that Han Su also has a good opportunity. Let's wait for a while. It was not easy to wait until Han Su finished forging. When he was inspecting the finished product, he was scolded by the dwarf blacksmith again. Compared with the equipment forged by other people, the iron spearhead forged by Han Su was really ugly. Bai Xiaowen interjected at the right time to help Han Su out of the situation. The reputation of the prophet was really well known. For his sake, the dwarf blacksmith finally stopped talking and took the iron spearhead back to the furnace to be reforged. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.